Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet, the John Campea Show, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile, coming to you from right here on our YouTube channel. I am, of course, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. Got a full house here today. Sitting right beside me is Robert Meyer Burnett. Joining us on the occasional Tuesday, as he does, Christian Harloff is here and in the house, everybody. Ray Ora is sitting over there sucking on something. Sitting right beside him, Jonathan Boyko running the show. And, of course, we got Taylor over there as well. And most importantly, we got you guys here. Thanks for making this show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to break it down into two parts. First part of the show, we're going to talk about some predetermined topics. And in the second half of the show, we're going to take your live comments and questions. Here's how you get a comment or question on. Number one, you got to be watching live. Number two, when we get to the end of the main topics, we'll announce that we're opening up the super chats. We only leave them open for just a couple of minutes. But when we do, we'll announce that, and that'll be your chance to throw in your thoughts, theories, questions, and opinions, and we'll address those in the second half of the show. Also, quick reminder, guys, if you guys need your daily fix of the John Campea Show, but you can't be in front of a YouTube video, good news, there is the audio version known as, very creatively, the John Campea Show podcast. Just go into your favorite podcasting app of choice and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it. All right, guys, with that down, let's dive right into it. We got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about here today. And the first thing we're going to talk about is this. As of this moment, and I got a few things I'm watching this week that may take its place, but as of this moment, my personal favorite film of the year is still Michelle Yeoh's Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm still agog and aghast by how incredible this film is, and more of you need to see it. I believe it became the number one A24 film of all time, right? It became the number one grossing A24 film of all time. This little indie film that could, and it's getting Oscar buzz. Well, one of the big independent film ceremonies happened the other night, and that is the Gotham Awards. Now, there's the Indie Spirit Awards, but then there's also the Gotham Awards. And Everything Everywhere All at Once took home Best Picture at the Gotham Awards. It took home the top prize for Best Feature of the Year for independent film. That, of course, will fuel its momentum going into the Oscars, which is really exciting. But what was also really interesting was that Ke-Huy Quan, who was, of course, short round in Indiana Jones, and he plays Michelle Yeoh's husband in the film, he actually took home Best Supporting Performance. Now, at the Gotham Awards, they don't delineate between actor and actress. They just have Best Performance. So they had the Best Lead Performance, and they had Best Supporting Performance. And Best Supporting Performance went to Key, which is awfully awesome to see. I was really, really excited to see that. By the way, Danielle Deadwyler won Best Lead Performance for Till. That was, again, at the Gotham Awards. So big stuff, Rob. You know, I've been gushing about Everything Everywhere from the moment that I saw. We all thought the trailers were pretty impressive. We're seeing it get the big nominations for the Indie Spirit Awards. It's now won the Gotham Awards. Now, the independent award things are not necessarily templates for what's going to happen at the Oscars, but with the momentum it has, how significant is it that it won the Gotham Awards, and where do you see its Oscar chances right now?
Well, I think it's significant on a number of levels. One, it's a fantastically imaginative film that was made for not a lot of money, comparatively speaking. And it shows that, and certainly, I mean, Michelle Yeoh is, of course, I've been watching her for decades, literally. I love her, but this is not exactly a cast that is known to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's a film that, again, wildly imaginative, directed by the Daniels. And it gave, what do we go to the movies for? To see movies like this. And I think that, and James Hong. And I think that one of the things about this movie that's so terrific is it embodies everything that indie, quote unquote, indie cinema is supposed to be. It shows a startling new voice in cinema that is emerging, that's probably going to be making movies, the Daniels, for the next decades. And also it rewards real creativity. And I think that it's exactly the kind of movies that should be winning awards, because unlike a lot of indie movies that people say are winning at the Oscars now, this is a movie that is also wildly entertaining.
Yeah.
You know, it's not beating you over the head with its messaging. It's you go in and you're
transported. It kind of does in a way, but it does it in a really fun way.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, great stories have their messaging baked into them.
Yes.
You know, and that's the thing. It sneaks up on you. And I think that this movie, to me, it exemplifies what cinema still can be.
You know, one of the other bits of Oscar buzz that this movie is getting is that when you go to a lot of the awards coverage sites, A lot of them are saying Jamie Lee Curtis has a real shot at a Best Supporting Actress thing. Interestingly, though, she was not nominated for the Gotham, and I can't remember if she was nominated for the Indie Spirit Awards either, but still a lot of the awards sites are saying she could be up there for that. Anyway, Christian, you have a chance to take a look at this. What's your takeaway from this, and how significant is this going into Oscar season?
I think it's very significant also from the time of when the movie was released. It was released earlier in the year, and a lot of times that's not a good, that works against movies. But the fact that this movie, you just listen to the both of you guys in the way that you've expressed your love for it, that's the majority of people who have seen this movie feel the same way. I feel the same way. It's creative. I agree with you that it's one of those things. Like, I feel like every time we see most Oscar movies these days, and I also think it's one of the reasons that I know. Well, I also think it's one of the reasons why, like, that some of these Oscar movies are not doing so well in the theater right now is because we're not in a great, super happy time in the world right now, and we're not in. People want to go to movies for escapism. It reminds me of like the late '70s, right, when people were like, all you were getting were movies like Chinatown and things, and the movie did very well, obviously, but there was a call for more like uplifting, entertaining movies, right? And this is one of those movies. I think there's a reason why Top Gun did as well as it did, also because of it's kind of a throwback to the old school way of escapism inside of movies. And this was that. And this was also, I love the idea that it was a smaller budget movie with great performances, brilliantly directed. The score was fantastic.
Yeah, it really was
great. All of it. So it doesn't surprise me that this movie's getting love, because every person that you see that covers Oscar stuff, that it's all in their top 10s already. The movies to be looking out for. Everyone's talking about it, and the fact that when the buzz starts happening, if your movie, even if it came out in February, March, whenever this movie came out, and it's still in the list, you've got a good chance. And obviously that's the case of what just happened. And I love that Ke Quan is back, because it's similar, somewhat similar to like the comeback of Brendan Fraser, although Brendan Fraser was, I think, maybe even more so for Key, right? Because he's been gone we knew him as, whether it was Short Round or Data, and now to see what he's capable of now as an adult, and he's doing all these new things. He's gonna be in the new Marvel show also, I think, coming up. Is that right? It's Marvel, right? Yeah, it's a Secret Invasion, I think maybe he's in.
No, I don't think he's in
Secret Wars. Secret Wars. Sorry, not Invasion. Secret Wars. I always get the two confused. But anyway, it's great to see him coming back in general.
Wait, are you Brendan Fraser's going to be in
Not Brendan Fraser.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait,
yeah,
what?
I'm just saying that
Are you thinking of Batgirl?
No. It's a parallel between the two of them, and the fact that they both have these comebacks, and especially him even more so.
The one point you brought up there, which I think is so key, is the fact that it's not often when you get those films that come out early in the year that have had that being at the forefront of everybody's minds throughout the whole year. What was the one about the kid where they shot over 17 years?
Boyhood.
Boyhood, right. Like that was another example of that, right? That got the early year release, but then kind of just lingered there the whole time and then started getting some Oscars. All right, guys, questions for you. What do you think about this? Everything Everywhere All at Once has taken home the top prize at the Gotham Awards. Will that momentum flow into the Oscars? Did you see the movie? I know some of you didn't, but you got to get on that. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's go into our Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. If you've got a question you'd like to hear your voice on our show, go ahead and call our hotline number anytime 24/7. That's 951-268-4259. Leave a message there and maybe you'll hear it on the show. Today's question is about James Gunn saying that DC video games are going to be in canon with the movies. Let's listen to this.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Phil from Arkansas. James Gunn was on Twitter saying that from this point on, even the video games that are DC are going to be in the same universe as all the DC movies. It's hard enough having a cohesive movie universe. Do you think this is the right step moving forward into all this? Love to hear your thoughts. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot for sending that in. And of course, one of the most exciting things, other than Hugh Jackman coming back as Wolverine to be in a Deadpool movie, is that James Gunn is running with Peter Safran a brand new, newly created DC studio. And that is one of the most exciting things in the world. Now, what's he going to do with it? Well, he, as he's always is, James Gunn is very, very active on social media, very interactive with people who write to him on social media. And somebody just straight up asked about the video games and stuff like that, and asked if the video games will tie in with the movies, to which James Gunn simply said, yes. That was it. That was the full extent of his response. Now, that, of course, started generating a lot of the headlines that James Gunn is saying that the video games are going to be in continuity and canon with the movies and all that kind of stuff. I'm not so sure that's exactly what he was saying, because he also said that, a lot of stuff is going to be in continuity, but James Gunn also this week came out and specified that while we are creating our DC cinematic universe, we are also going to have standalone movies continue. And that's which I loved hearing, because I love the fact that they do some standalone stuff over there. My impression that I got from that was that I'm not sure he's necessarily saying every video game that comes out that has DC characters in it is necessarily going to be in canon, but rather maybe some of them will be. I mean, maybe yes, maybe no. But Christian, I'll tell you what, when I heard this initially, that he was saying that, games are going to be in continuity, I had traumatic flashbacks.
I know where you're going.
When Disney took over Star Wars and they said, from now on, everything is canon. The video games, the comic books, the stories you tell your children at night, the movies, the TV shows, it's all in canon. And I remember...
Don't leave out the part when then Kathleen Kennedy went and said, "Our sales going up," after I said that?
Yeah. and then hung up quickly.
Right.
But I remember saying, well, this is very ambitious, but I don't know how long that can last. Now, and of course, it didn't last long. And eventually... was it Pablo Hidalgo who eventually once said when the book started, look, when you get something as deep and as complex as Star Wars, you're never going to be able to keep everything in canon. And we started recognizing in certain books, certain canon was being broken. And then Pablo Hidalgo made that infamous quote, well, when you're reading the books, the part that are consistent with the movies, that's canon. And the parts that aren't canon. To which I said, you're not sort of pregnant. You're either pregnant or you're not. Right. It's canon or it's not. So I had a little bit of flashbacks about that. But I think that's what James Gunn meant, was that it's some of them will be in canon and some of them will be, I don't know. You heard him say this. You saw the headlines. What's your takeaway from it?
So I thought the exact same thing, but the difference is this. I think that it goes back to the whole point of what we were talking about when you have someone like James Gunn, who is also, by the way, a massive Knights of the Old Republic fan and a massive a massive Star Wars fan. He was probably as excited as we were when he heard all the stuff about the canon stuff inside of the games and everything too. And I also think that he is a massive fan of all this stuff as well. And this is not a critique of Kathleen Kennedy. She is not, of all of this stuff in general. And I think that has to count when it comes to introducing the games and the stuff, because it means you want to connect all of it. It's not just to sell it and then say, we don't have any source material. What? James Gunn isn't saying that. James, I agree with you. I think that some of it inside of, and the same way that they're going to have standalone movies still, I think that they'll have these things that connect. But I do think he's going to make sure that these things do connect all the way through, because I think he wants to do that. And I think when you think about the idea of what Lucasfilm wanted to do in 2012, it was awesome. It was the reason I read all this stuff. It was the reason I did, because I wanted to learn a couple of things.
Yeah, and suddenly we all wanted to buy every book that came out.
And I stopped because it was to me, it was more of a lie, to be honest. Yeah. And even when you look at like K2SO and Andor, we know how they meet in the comics. You think Tony Gilroy is going to stick to that? Probably not, right? But I think that James Gunn says that in general, if he wants to have these certain things that connect, they're going to. And I think you'll have these through lines that'll make sense, that you'll be rewarded. That's the whole thing. We want to be rewarded if we get this stuff, if it plays to canon. And I think you will, with certain games, with certain shows, with certain animated properties for sure, and certain movies. I think it'll connect, and they'll be very clear and precise about what is and what isn't. I've got that confidence in Gunn and Safran.
One of the other dangers here, Rob, that comes along with something like this, back in the 80s and 90s, the comic book industry faced a massive problem, which was, you had all these comics and they all try to interconnect with all the other comics with their storylines. Okay, you read Amazing Spider-Man 1. The story continues in Bishop special issue number 3 next week. And all of a sudden, you're somebody who'd like to collect 2 or 3 comics every month. Now, if you wanted to follow the story, you had to get all of them. It creates the danger, not that this will be realized, but the danger that, are you creating a DC world where, okay, well, wait a minute, if I want to watch this new Batman movie, I have to go back first and play the DC Legends of Tomorrow game? Because how close and how dangerous do you think they got to tread here to that line? Like, how can something positive come out of this?
Well, the real problem is that there are very few people that have a grasp of how this would work. And the thing about it is, I honestly believe that it's the one place where people that are around, I'd say my age, you had to have lived through this period of time, and you have to understand how to make, like in James Gunn's case, he's a novelist. He's written for film companies. He's now an A-list director. He's a gamer. He's a geek. He was there when Star Wars was new and has watched all of this happen. The rise of D&D, the rise of video games, all of it. He's been a part of all of it. He's a huge fan of all of it. So unlike, Kevin Feige specialized in one thing, James Gunn has a holistic understanding of all of this. The question is, can you put people in place that can make sure this stuff is all kept square? They always pay lip service to this, but they never have anybody that can keep track of it all in a proper way.
What did they call that at Lucasfilm? Was it the story group?
Yeah,
they're supposed to oversee
it was
canon?
the holocron, or not the holocron. What was it?
But even then, they've been talking about transmedia properties now for decades, where you're going to have all these different things that all link together. Now, I would say that James Gunn would know that, okay, we have a video game that's going to tell the story of so-and-so doing this, like in the DC universe. Now, with gameplay and everything, I would imagine that you've got to have some leeway, but the story that's being told, the conflict with whomever, Martian Manhunter is looking for Oreo cookies, and he runs afoul of, I don't know,
Cookie Monster.
somebody. And that experience, that event occurred in the video game. But the vagaries of how you have to play to get to that are probably, that's in game, but the results of whatever happens at the end, that becomes canon. And I can see that happening. So the video game story happened, but it has to give you leeway because who knows how you're going to play it.
And I know you want to move on, but like the one thing that, as far as you're concerned about,
where did that come from?
The wide world of the internet. I searched it.
I mean, I said when I said Oreo cookies, this was not just some random cookie. Martian Manhunter loves Oreo.
Okay, so you actually I was going to say, where did this thing come from?
Well, one of the things that you had mentioned, you're concerned with that because you could get lost if you didn't see it, right? You know who did it really well, even though the movie following wasn't great, was The Matrix.
Yes,
Animatrix was done very well. There's stuff about how the kid was found inside it. If you didn't see it, and you saw the movie, you didn't need to see it. There was the video game that they had for The Matrix that played into a lot of stuff that happens in the movie, that if you played it, you were rewarded, and because it was canon and it did make sense, but you didn't need it. You didn't need to see it in order to catch up. That's how you can do it.
The Wachowskis understood that, though.
Of course.
Like they were probably the only creators that ever got it. And again, they're of a certain age. James Gunn is a contemporary.
Yeah.
So
here's another question, though, that could complicate this a bit. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I fully understand the inner workings of this. I'm not. But it was my understanding that those video games are not made by DC Studios. They're made by Warner Brothers Interactive. So does James Gunn's role as the head of DC Studios give him
probably collaboration?
Maybe more of a collaboration thing?
Yeah.
All right, it's going to be interesting. Guys, question is, what do you think about all this? Do you like the idea of maybe them trying to tie the games into the movies? Are you worried that they try to tie them in too tightly and you can't watch the movies unless you also play the games or whatever else? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to take a quick second here and thank one of the sponsors of today's show, my favorite shirts, the good folks, the folks over at Stamps.com. We want to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Stamps.com. Guys, it happens every holiday season. No matter how prepared we think we are for the season, it always turns out we're nowhere near as prepared as we thought we were, especially with our shipping. And right about now, seasonal excitement, or dread as the case may be, is really starting to settle in, especially for small businesses. Slaying through traffic to the post office, inboxes more like a blizzard than a winter wonderland, rushing to send cards and gifts to your loyal clients. The good news is it's not too late to get your holiday mailing and shipping under control with Stamps.com. Sign up now and you'll be printing your own postage in minutes. Because Stamps.com is your one-stop shop for all of your shipping and mailing needs. Get access to the United States Postal Service and UPS services that you need to run your business right from your computer. Up to 86% off. So this holiday season, trade late nights for silent nights and get started with Stamps.com today. Sign up with promo code Campea for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter the code Campea. And thank you to our friends at Stamps.com for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show. Okay, guys. Go around. That's off-camera conversation that you guys have no context for. With that down, let's move into our main topics here today, shall we? And how do we select our main topics? So that's where we need you guys, because you guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you guys feel we need to cover here on the show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. That down? Rob, what is our first main topic today?
Our first main topic comes to us from Who Killed Peter? Hey, John and crew. I've seen a report going around for a couple of days now that says Avatar: The Way of Water might have a budget of anywhere from 350 to 400 million, making it one of the most expensive movies of all time. This is much bigger than the previous projected budget, which was 250 million. Just how much does this movie have to make to profit?
All right, thanks a lot for saying that in. Now, of course, we ended up having to talk about the budget of Avatar to The Way of Water the other day, because a report came out that James Cameron had said the movie's going to have to be the top 1 or 2 biggest film of all time in order to break even. Now, of course, we broke that down, and that was complete nonsense, because the film literally would have had to have cost $1.1 billion in order to have to do this. So we speculated, you know what, James Cameron wasn't talking worldwide, he was talking domestic. Because if you look at the biggest domestic films of all time, now you're talking in the $800, $900 million range, and that seemed to make more sense. Well, now, according to reports like this one that's coming up here on the screen, we now do know what the actual cost of the movie is. According to the Hollywood Reporter, the cost of the movie is coming in, according to them, $350 to $400 million. Now, the funny thing is that doesn't even make it the most expensive film of all time, but I believe it puts it in the top 1, 2, or 3 of that whole thing. So in asking the question and becoming one of the most expensive films at all time, how much does Avatar actually need to make? Now that we know it does not need to make $2 billion to break even, well, how much does it cost to make? Well, we're going to go back to the old formula here. So let's go into the Campea classroom here for just a second. Okay. Now, again, I've gone through this before, but we keep getting asked about it, so I'll just mention this one more time. When you're looking, what I was told by the vice president of acquisitions at AMC Theaters when I worked there, and this was the guy who was responsible for acquiring the films, what was going to come in and be on AMC screens. His basic thing to me was the formula was simple. It's this. It's you take, when you're trying to figure out a break-even number, I'll just say production budget plus marketing, so let's call it mark, and then you add, add 33%. So that's the basic formula. If you want to know, just general rule of thumb, this isn't exact science. You said just generally, if you want to have a general idea about how much a movie needs to make at the box office in order to be profitable, you take the cost of the production plus the cost of marketing, and then you add about 1/3. You add 33%. And that should equal, we'll just call BE, break even. All right. So let's go with Avatar or A2, Avatar 2. So if they're saying the production budget equals, say, 400 million, let's say that this is going to be one of the most expensive marketing campaigns ever. Okay. So let's say the marketing equals, well, not the most, but really, really up there. Let's say 200 million. Okay. Well, now you're talking about $600 million, add about 33%. That's roughly another $200 million. So you are looking at an $800 million break-even point for Avatar 2, which, if you go back to our conversations about the James Cameron saying it needs to be one of the biggest things of all time, and we said he probably meant domestic, this number represents that. It represents one of the biggest domestic box offices of all time. So in actuality, I mean, this is a general rule of thumb, but in actuality, you're probably looking at $800, $900 million is going to need to break even. Obviously, that's a far cry from the $2.1 billion some people are speculating it was going to need. But Rob, while $800 million is nothing compared to a $2.1 billion people are saying it's going to make, this is one of the most expensive films ever made. And unlike some of those other films that are in the top 1, 2, or 3, which had massive behind the scenes drama where they had to stop filming and then go back and reshoot and do blah, blah, blah. This is a straightforward movie, and they're talking about a neighborhood of $400 million. Does that make sense to you that a movie like Avatar, The Way of Water would be one of the most expensive films at all time? And does an $800 million in that neighborhood target, is that a manageable break-even point, or could this movie be in danger of being a money loser?
Well, I mean, of all the movies ever made, I would bet on this one. But there's also a number that people always forget when they talk about box office and how much money a movie needs to make to break even. And it also deals with studio accounting. There's studio overhead. And that doesn't like a movie is a business unto itself. You create a new LLC, and there's the production budget of the movie itself. But then there's also the overhead of the studio. And the studio charges every movie with that overhead, which isn't necessarily a part of the production budget of the movie. That comes in later. And that could be, depending on how creative you want to get with your accounting, a lot more money as well. That's why they always say, like, Peter Jackson would sue Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers says, I know Lord of the Rings made $1 billion, but it has yet to break even, because they keep adding. And that studio accounting never goes away. It keeps happening because movies are an ongoing business proposition. They're not just making money for their box office release. They make money for years. But I would say that if you're going to bet on one movie, I would bet on this. I mean, it's still, the real question is, how much profit do you expect to make? And the studios, they're not making, like, even if you make a movie that's $100 million and it makes $1 billion, how much profit do you really make at the end of the day? 100 million? 200 million? There's 800 million that's going out. I could see this still being profitable if this movie, but they're expecting it to make $2 billion.
Yeah, and I don't think it will.
And if it doesn't, I mean, even if it made $2 billion, I bet they would be happy with a $200 million profit.
Well, that gets into creative accounting.
I mean,
like
yes,
that's
no, but the thing is, there's a lot of and that's Hollywood is masterful at creative accounting. The Art Buchwald case in Coming to America, which people don't remember, but that was a big deal in Hollywood in terms of how people get paid. You've got everybody from Chris Carter suing Fox for double dealing itself with X-Files. I mean, there's so many different examples when you actually look at Hollywood accounting. You can make it so no movie looks like it was profitable.
Yeah, if you wanted to.
If you wanted to.
Christian?
But, yeah.
You know why Fox sold to Disney? It was one of the reasons. Fox was the one that greenlit this a while ago, and Disney obviously put some. I wonder how much cost Fox put into this and how much cost Disney put into it, and how much, if Disney's going to lose if it doesn't make money, and how much. I guess they pick up a lot of the debt that Fox had anyway.
When you buy the company, you buy the debt.
They picked up all the debt, right?
Yeah,
So they're going to, but I just wonder how much, if anything, they had made back with other movies at that point to cover up for it. I don't know. But either way, you've got this movie that I think is going to do very well. I think it's going to, because the reason why I think it's going to do, there's no other game in town in December at all. Like, Avatar is the only big movie at all until February.
Yeah, because wasn't Aquaman supposed to come out at
Aquaman and Shazam.
That moved. And Shazam.
Yeah. They both were supposed to come out. Aquaman moved, Shazam moved. Shazam was the one that stuck around the most, and then Shazam got out of the way, right, because of reshuffling in DC in general. I don't think it was getting out of the way of Avatar, but that helped Avatar. That helped Avatar make money, going to make money, because there's nothing else to see, especially during Christmas time. And then you've got nothing until Ant-Man and the Quantumania.
Right.
So you have time to build. And for what we saw, my concern with it is this. They showed some stuff at D23, and I thought it looked fantastic. The underwater stuff and the 3D stuff why 3D was so special when the first one came out. Right. It looks great. My issue with it was the frame rate. The frame rate reminded me of what they did with Hobbit. Right. And I didn't like that. I didn't like the Hobbit. And
the TV soap opera feel.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if that's going to change in the theater. If you were the same way in Hobbit, you had a chance to watch it, not in that ratio. So I think that's going to have a big effect, to be honest, because I don't think a lot of people are going to love it. But I do think it's going to make. I think it'll make money. I agree with you, John. I don't think it's going to make $2 billion. I think it makes about 1.2, 1.3 overall, which is, it's not nothing.
I mean, it makes it one of the biggest box office hits of all time.
Right.
If it does. But I mean, that's the thing too, because you bring that up, is that expectations become the ultimate distorter of our view of reality sometimes, right? Like, you can say, well, the first movie made almost $3 billion. So we expect this one to clear $2 billion. So if it makes 1.6, there are going to be people that come out and say, oh, what a failure.
Right.
It's like, I'm sorry, it made $1.6 billion.
Right.
It's like one of the biggest hits of all time. Like, again, I think it is just a little too late. Like this sequel is very late in the coming. And I think for it to have had a shot at $2 billion, it needed to come out like 3 years ago, or when they originally targeted like 2017. Now, that being said,
Never doubt Cameron.
I said the same thing about Top Gun.
Right.
And I think a lot of people said the same thing, and I was one of them. And it's like $1.4 billion film. And again, I never doubt Cameron. That's why I'm sure this will be a hit. I just don't know if that hits that $2 billion. Rob, if I had to put you on the spot right now, feet to the fire, does Avatar 2 hit $2 billion?
Well, my problem with answering that is I haven't seen it.
And that's really what it comes down to. Right?
If the film if it's Highlander 2, The Quickening, I'm like, Russell Mulcahy directed that too.
Michael Ironside classic.
I mean, we're going back to Zeist or whatever the hell that planet was. I mean, going back to Pandora. If it's that, it ain't gonna make $2 billion. However, if it connects, if it does what James Cameron does best, and the fact that it has an open landings, it could become a cultural event that everyone over the holiday season, it could be just the thing that people who are coming out of COVID, inflation, world wars, the World Cup, whatever strife, the divided country, this could be the great cure-all. And if it is that, if people get that emotional jolt and James Cameron delivers, this could become the cultural event of the end of 2022.
And you know what could help that also? Is the fact that I love the first Avatar.
I do too.
There are not a lot of people, but there are a lot of people who don't like it. Think it was a ripoff of Dances with Wolves, or it has, through time.
I'm both. It was a ripoff of Dancing with Wolves, and it was great.
Right, but I saw a lot of movies.
What's that?
It's opening in China,
and it's getting
too.
a China release too, which is huge.
But I think that what Rob is saying here also, if this movie, the second one, takes those people who are like, you know what, I didn't really love the first one, but I'll see the second one, and then they love the second one more than the first one, and they go, I didn't love the first one, but man, the second one's incredible, that could also boost it up tremendously. The repeat viewings of people who didn't think they wanted to see it in the first place.
And I have to say, I think a lot of people that say they didn't like this movie that I hear online.
The first one?
Yeah. Never saw it. I mean, they never saw it at a theater. They might have
In a
watched it on
theater.
video.
Right.
Yeah, that's
right,
what I mean.
right.
They did not have the experience because, dude, this movie was a cultural event. Everybody saw it.
Or forgot what it was like when they saw it. In the
Yeah.
How much did the re-release make? Does anyone know?
It was a lot.
I'm trying to-
I mean, for re-releases,
The one that just came out?
It was a lot, and I can't remember the number, but I think it was the biggest re-release, other than the first time when they re-released the Star Wars Special Edition.
Right.
But that was when they changed the movie and everything.
it was like
that.
96.
This seems kind of goofy, but the other day, Taylor shot a video of us sitting here with a filter, an Avatar filter, and he put up Avatar playing on the screen. It was a scene where Jake Sully's getting out of his container, and you see the guys floating around in the ships in the background. And I'm like, and I turn and I don't know what it is about that movie. I was mesmerized. I haven't seen Avatar in years. And I was sitting there looking at it on the screen going, there's something, James Cameron can do something that you can never, there's a magic in his filmmaking. It's in Aliens, it's in The Abyss, it's in Terminator. Titanic. You can't look away, man.
All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? It does look like Avatar is indeed going to be one of the most expensive films ever made. And it's going to have a pretty high threshold for what it needs to make to break even. It's not $2 billion. But still, how do you think it's going to do? Are you looking forward to the movie? Whatever your guys' thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and leave your thoughts there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. Rob, what is our second main topic?
John, our second main topic comes to us from Sally. Hey, guys. My most anticipated movie for the rest of the year is not Avatar, but rather Puss in Boots, The Last Wish. I'm a big animation fan, but aside from Turning Red and The Bad Guys, I haven't really liked this year's animated films. That said, it looks like Puss in Boots will change that, as the first reviews are very positive, saying that it's better than the first one even. Does this make you more excited? What are your thoughts?
This was funny. I might have been doing an Ask Me Anything on the weekend, and somebody brought up that they went to go see an advanced screening of this. I'm like, oh, there were advanced screens. I went, oh my God, I had tickets to that. And I had totally forgotten about it. Totally forgotten about it. Of course, I'm not a huge Puss in Boots guy. All right. I mean, I thought it was very, very charming in the Shrek films. The movies have had their moments. I don't dislike them, but I'm not a huge Shrek guy or a huge Puss in Boots guy. But when the trailer came, that last full trailer, it kind of won me over. I thought, well, this looks really interesting. Well, the reviews are looking great. And if we want to pull up my computer screen here for a second, the actual computer screen, not the iPad, but if we looked at that right now, not many, just 11. Just 11, all of them positive except one. Bibiani.
Was it Bibiani?
Bibiani right now is the one dissenting voice, but everybody else is raving about it. And more importantly, the audience score is sitting at, so we got a critic score of 91, an audience score of 98. And here's the more key thing is that unlike say Strange World, where, 70% of the critics said they like it, but when you read their comments, they're like, yeah, we like it. It's a fine little movie. But the people who are liking Puss in Boots are really, really liking it a lot. Again, except for Bibiani. And who knows, maybe I'll end up agreeing with him. I haven't seen the movie yet myself. But I think this is a really good sign this is coming out. And Christian, for me, I don't know, you and I never talked about the trailer that came out for this. I was really pleasantly surprised by the trailer. Even though I'm not big into this property, it's very exciting to see these types of numbers because you know what? I'll say right now, I think this movie, as far as animation goes, this movie's going to make bank. I think this movie is going to make into the $300-400+ million range. But I don't know. What do you think about this?
Well, it's the same thing we were just saying with Avatar. For kids' movies, it's the only game in town during that time, really. And to be completely honest with you, I thought it was a direct-to-streaming movie at first.
So did I.
So I
thought
just
the same thing.
So I just ignored it. I was like, not that I wouldn't probably catch it with my daughter or something, But then I started hearing more about it, and people were like, no, this is, and I started getting emails about it, and I'm like, oh, I haven't watched the trailer yet because I don't want to, because I actually have a screening link for it because I think that they're pushing it now for potential awards.
Yeah.
And that is, so I will be watching it. I'm gonna have the 5-year-old watch it, who saw Strange World with me, and I agree with the critics too. To me, it was fine. It's forgettable. This movie could be a surprise animation hit. People love the character. So I'm actually I'm anticipating it now, very similar to the viewer, to where I wasn't beforehand, but now hearing the positive buzz, more word of mouth, and the idea that it's something I could watch with my little one, I'm pretty excited about it.
Rob, what are you taking away from this?
Well, here's the thing with animated films or any movie, it's the premise that attracts me. What is this movie about? I think this movie has a pretty genius premise. The idea that Puss in Boots, who's a cat, has used up 8 of his lives, and he's got 1 left. As a cat lover, John, that premise is fascinating. But it's fascinating to me because it plays on the whole myths of felines and all that. And I love the idea that you've got this hero, call it anything, but the hero knows that he has to hang up his spurs. Like this is the end of it could be Unforgiven. The same way, like, one last mission, one last ride. I have to do one last thing to redeem myself. That's a great idea that always works. And the fact that when you watch this trailer, dude, you'll be like, okay, everything, Goldilocks and her 3 bears, everything about this movie looks like an animation is only as good as the ideas behind it. The gags, the story, the execution. This to me looks like, just from the trailer, a movie that I, as a jaded film goer, I'm like, I want to see that. If this were live action, if it was animation, I'd still want to see it because the premise interests me. I want to know, how does this story resolve?
I have to admit, every once in a while there'll be a moment in a trailer where I don't nearly spit up whatever it is I'm drinking at the time. That scene where, because he's got to retire because he only has 1 life left, so he can't do any adventuring, and he goes to that old woman's house with all the cats, and he tries to use the toilet. She goes, no, you have to go over here. And she puts him down in front of the litter box. And Puss in Boots is looking at the litter box and he says, "This is where dignity goes to die." I just about died.
But that's a great gag.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's a funny, it shows there's wit in this film.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of it. And listen, I'll tell you what, you know what? I'd be remiss. I never thought they existed, but apparently there are people who are not just fans of, but obsessed with the world of Shrek. We've got one of them in the office. I have never met anybody more obsessed with Shrek and the world of Shrek. So I must ask you, Taylor. It's a spinoff, but where's your excitement level for Puss in Boots?
Through the roof. I am so excited for this. We're all going to go together. We're all going to dress up as cats.
When you say
we're all going to wear
we,
boots.
who do you?
I mean, Ray.
You got a
I
mouse
mean,
in your pocket
Jonathan.
or what?
John. I mean, Rob. Christian. You could bring your 5-year-old.
Have you enjoyed your time working here? Would you like it to continue?
The only people more excited for Puss in Boots 2 than me would be Smash Mouth, because look at what it's doing for them.
That's right. I mean, they're suddenly going to be relevant again.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Question is for
Relevant's a strong word.
Well, they're all over TikTok.
Strong word. What do you guys think about all this? The word coming out about it is like really, really exceptional. Did you like the trailer? Maybe you don't care about the property at all. Are you looking forward to it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, before we continue on here, we're going to take a second and thank another sponsor of today's show. They do make my favorite shirts, our friends over at True Classic. We want to thank the sponsor of today's video, True Classic. The holidays are here and there is plenty of t-shirt cheer thanks to our sponsor, True Classic Tees. Guys, we have the perfect gift for your wish list. True Classic Tees are a gift for you, for her, and a great present for any guy in your life. True Classic is on a mission to maximize men's confidence by making them look good. Get 25% off True Classic with my exclusive link, trueclassic.com/Campea, and the discount doesn't stop there. You'll save even more during their site-wide sale. Guys, like most of you, I have always struggled with finding the right shirts for me. Either they're not all that comfortable or they don't fit me all that right. Well, the best thing is that True Classic's team has designed t-shirts to make guys of all sizes feel confident in their clothing. These shirts taper off towards the bottom, but they fit tighter around the chest and shoulders. This is the perfect look that can be achieved by every body type. And they offer other menswear as well, ranging from polos to workout shirts designed to keep your body feeling nice and comfy. So guys, get 25% off at trueclassic.com/Campea. Free shipping included on purchases over $100. That's 25% off at trueclassic.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at True Classic for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. Remember, guys, when you support our sponsors, you're actually supporting us. So go on down into the comments or into the description of this video, and right near the top of that description, you'll find links to all of our sponsors and their promo codes. And once again, thank you to the folks over at True Classic. All right, guys, with that down, we're now going to move on to main topic number 3. Woo! Rob!
Like a cat.
What is our third main topic today?
John, our third main topic comes from Film Zone. First Pooh, and now How the Grinch Stole Christmas is getting a horror film. They say it's a spoof to get around copyrights using the Mad Magazine names changed to spoof names for the film. A movie poster is dropped with the Grinch holding a knife, and Cindy Lou scared in its reflection. The poster also confirms a theater release for the film. Wonder what the Dr. Seuss family thinks of this film, and will they take action or ignore it? And is the film protected as a spoof film?
All right, thanks a lot for saying that in. And there's not just a poster, a trailer has dropped. There is now a trailer for The Mean One, which is out there. This is the webpage, joeblow.com. And it looks a lot like the Jim Carrey version of, you know what this?
That's what kind of worries me. Like, could they be sued for art? Like art
Probably
direction?
not, because the Jim Carrey version of itself was an iteration. But this is what gets me. When the Pooh, Blood and Honey thing came out, I thought, you know where this movie came from? Somebody found this bear mask and said, wouldn't it be funny if he was a killer? And I have a feeling somebody found in their garage this Grinch mask and said, let's make a horror movie out of it. So I will tell you what, though. I watched the trailer.
Oh, no.
And I want to see this movie. Oh, no. Now, for those of you who don't know what this movie is about, this is how the movie is described. This is the synopsis of the film. It reads as follows. A hairy green-skinned grump in a Santa suit living on a mountain high above the town of Newville, not Whoville, Newville, despising the holiday season. Young Cindy, you-know-who, Crystal Martin, whose parents were butchered by the Mean One 20 Christmases earlier, is returning to the town to seek closure. But When the mean one launches a new reign of terror that threatens to destroy Christmas, Cindy finds a bold new purpose: trapping and killing the monster. This is exactly what Pooh, Blood and Honey is. It's the exact same thing, taking this beloved childhood thing and now I would say this fits better than Pooh because I could see the Grinch murdering folks. I could totally see the Grinch straight up murdering. And this whole concept that the mythology is a little bit different than the way we've been told. Sure, Cindy Lou walked in on a Santa impersonator in their home, but instead of giving her milk and cookies and sending her off to bed, he murdered her parents and then disappeared back into the hills. I'm not going to lie to you. I want to see this. I thought the trailer was funny. I want to check this out. When they say theatrical release, I think somebody's probably booking the Spartan 5 at their local mall for an afternoon to play it in theaters. But I don't know. Wherever it's going to play and however you're going to see it, I want to see it. But it highlights that this is now a trend. Because not only do we have the Winnie the Pooh thing, now we have the Grinch. I also saw that there is a Bambi one coming called Bambi the Reckoning, where now little Bambi is going through the woods and murdering humans who he holds responsible for murdering his mother. So, and I'm sure there's going to be more. I'm sure we're going to see probably a spoof of the Teletubbies going around and ripping off children's heads in their sleep. We're going to see a spoof of Mr. Rogers, where he ain't so friendly. Anyway. He actually, I don't know, drinks your pet's blood. I don't know. But these things are coming. Now, as far as is it protected, it's 100% protected. This movie is clearly protected as a spoof. They can get away with this. The one question that you brought up there, Jonathan, about how identical the mask looks to the one in there, I'm sure that's something their lawyer would have cleared and they would have made sure of. Otherwise, you'd think they better have. I mean, even I would know to check on that. So I'm sure they probably did too. So still have not seen Blood and Honey. Taylor, have Blood and Honey screened anywhere yet?
February 15th.
February 15th.
One night only.
One night only. Taylor's already got tickets. So I don't care. I'm going to look forward to this. Rob, did you see the trailer for this? And if so, what did you think
I
of it?
did watch the trailer for this, and I have to say, I mean, it's pretty dubious because remember,
that does look kind of scary.
We did just see a movie, the Joker film. There was a Joker movie that was going to play, I don't know if it was Fantastic Fest, that got shut down at Toronto. Was it Toronto? And they couldn't show it. Now, the Dr. Seuss estate just went through a litigation for a parody book called Oh, the Places You'll Boldly Go, which was sort of a Star Trek Dr. Seuss mashup. So they're litigious, and rightfully so, because here's the thing about this kind of thing. You have to ask yourself, there's one thing, it's parody, it's a fine line with something like this, because that mask, that's pretty redolent of the character. And I don't know. I mean, I think actually this is a funny idea. I like you. I'd watch this movie. And if they make it like Terrifier 2 and it's just hideously violent, it's even better. But
it stars, the guy who's playing the Grinch is from Terrifier 2, by the way.
And I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if it's able to be released. I mean, isn't Winnie the Pooh in the public domain though?
Yes. So they don't even have to worry about satire.
Yeah. So I don't know if Dr. Seuss is in the public domain.
I don't
think
it is,
so
but it
either.
doesn't necessarily need to be.
No, it's true. I know.
I mean, look, they made Edward Penis Hands, for God's sakes, so they can make this movie. But I also I actually think, you know where I think these movies came from? I don't necessarily think it was people dressing up in the garage. I think it was people I remember when we were back in the day where there was AMC or Collider and we were looking at, people were making trailers of original properties that were Winnie the Pooh, whatever, and making them as horror films.
Yeah, that's true.
And they went viral.
Like that Mrs. Doubtfire one.
Right.
I remember that one.
There was Mrs. Doubtfire. There was all these different childhood ones that were done as horror films, and they went viral, and everybody was looking at them. And I bet you somebody watched them and said, "What do we really do this?" And then they do it with Winnie the Pooh. They do it with this. I am gonna be the Grinch in the room and say and I understand you guys think it looks clever and looks funny and everything too, and I get it.
Now when you say you guys,
but I'm just saying from there's a lot of people out there that wanted to see it, there's people talking about it. I'm the grouchy dad in the room going, why are you tainting this? It's like, for me, it's like, and I know there's people throwing tomatoes at it. Shut up, grandpa. But I don't give a shit about this movie.
This
I
guy
really
looks
don't.
like he went on a Coke binge.
Yeah, I don't. You know what it reminds me of also? But you bring up the parody stuff. It reminds me of Brightburn. Brightburn was clearly Superman, clearly, but they couldn't say it. We had the director on back in the day, and we'd ask him. You could tell he was prepped by the studio. Do not ever mention Superman. It could be anybody. They clearly in the writers' room. It's Superman. James Gunn produced it. It's Superman, but they couldn't say it because of legalities and certain things. You see the movie. It's evil Superman. So there's ways to do it and get around it, but I think I agree with you guys. The biggest concern is that looks like the ground. Whoop, there it goes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, well, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? I'm actually quite intrigued by this project to see how it turns out. It's clearly low budget. It's a pretty good looking outfit, though, on the guy.
Yeah.
$80 million.
$80 million. Just 1/5 of what James Cameron spent
it's like the Munsters.
on Avatar. Guys, questions for you. How do you feel about it? Do you like what the images you're seeing? Did you see the trailer? Did you enjoy it? Maybe you think it's a total waste. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move into main topic number 4. Rob, what is our 4th main topic today?
John, our 4th main topic comes to us from Aaron T. Hey, John and crew. I read an article talking about the original script for Wakanda Forever was altered after the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman. I was surprised to hear how much of it didn't actually change, according to Ryan Coogler. I guess Namor and the basics of the story were still the same, dealing with loss and grief, just about different things. Did you have a chance to read this, and how well do you think Coogler handled the situation? Thanks.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Let's start with that last part. How well did Ryan Coogler deal with the situation? I will never fully grasp the enormity of the task, both creatively and emotionally, that filmmakers say behind Fast 7 and Black Panther 2, how they did it. When Paul Walker dies halfway through production, or more than halfway through production of the Fast and Furious, how do you emotionally recover from that and then still find a way to bring everybody back together? Everybody loved him, and you bring everybody back together and try to finish that movie out. Black Panther was in a little bit of a different situation. They hadn't already started production, but Ryan Coogler had already started putting the movie together. He was writing the script, and you lose Chadwick Boseman, who is the heartbeat of that franchise, and he was beloved by everybody he worked with. And how do you, from a production, creative, and emotional point of view, how do you bring everybody back together and move forward? What type of job? How well do I think Ryan Coogler handled it? Titan-like an absolute Titan. It's unbelievable what these guys were able to pull off and accomplish. It's remarkable. Did he do some things in the movie that I think should have been done differently? Yes. Could I have done it better? Hell no. Could most people have done better? Hell no. What he did was incredible. But yeah, there was an interview that was done. And the interview was actually a couple of weeks ago, but it didn't really get traction until the last couple of days, where Ryan Coogler was explaining that he had his initial script for Black Panther 2, and then, of course, the passing of Chadwick Boseman. What changed? What stayed the same? This comes to us from the folks over at Inverse, who wrote the following. Coogler says, the tone was going to be similar, Coogler says. The character was going to be grieving the loss of time, coming back after being gone for 5 years. As a man with so much responsibility to so many, coming back after a forced 5-year absence, that's what the film was tackling. He was grieving time and couldn't get back. Grief was a big part of it. After Boseman died, Coogler worked with co-writer Joe Robert Cole to draft a new story. While the plot and the protagonist changed, there were still elements of Wakanda Forever left from Coogler's original script. Namor the Submariner, played by Tenoch Huerta, was always the antagonist. The article goes on and talks about things. So these key foundational themes, when you get into Black Panther Wakanda Forever, you have Shuri, who's wrestling with grief and doubt and direction with all that kind of stuff, and how that all plays with the inclusion of Talocan and Namor. In the original script, the more I read the interview, it was surprisingly similar. It's just that it was going to be T'Challa, who, not grieving the loss of any one person, but was rather grieving the loss of that. He missed 5 years of, all these people's lives and all this kind of stuff. He missed so much of it. and he was going to be dealing with that. We still had Talocan. I'm sure the basic structure of a device was going to be the heart of, Talocan being upset that Wakanda exposed Talocan and all that kind of stuff. So it was really neat to see what they did there. And what they did was very creatively say, take those themes and just transmute them from T'Challa's character into another character. Again, I don't agree with the choice of which character they transmuted that to, but it was done effectively well. It was done very, very well. Because I'll tell you what, watching that movie, I never once felt like this was a movie. You watch Justice League, the theatrical version of Justice League. And while I enjoyed watching that movie in theater, you could tell this is a hodgepodge of different visions and different things trying to be crammed together in one movie. When I watched Black Panther Wakanda Forever, while I didn't completely love it, it felt like a pure original film. It never for a second to me felt like it was a movie that was being patched together or updated from a previous script before Chadwick had died. So yeah, I was really surprised to read how much of it was truly similar, how the bones of that original script were able to be transferred over. And when I read that, then I really respected what Coogler was able to do there. Anyway, Christian, you read this article, you see the similarities that he was able to bring over. It must have been emotionally incredibly difficult to take these themes that you wrote for Chadwick and now moving them. And now instead of grieving time, we're actually grieving Chadwick. What do you make of this, and how well do you think Ryan Coogler managed that?
Masterfully. I mean, absolutely masterfully. Very similar to what you just expressed. I think that one of the things that you had mentioned inside of ironically, the time, as he mentioned, I think that that's what makes this so spectacular. Also, this story is the amount of time he had to do this. Yeah. He didn't have that much time. They announced it. He had written the one that was going to come out with Chadwick. Chadwick went, was diagnosed and then was, obviously a lot of people knew in his circle, but that disease is it's a bitch. It's a real, pardon the French, a real fucker. And it took him fast. And they, as you said, had to grieve, and then they had to work, and they had to put it all together in a way that it all made sense. And it makes a ton of sense that you're looking at it and you're going, okay, this is what I have here. Because not only are you trying to piece together the stuff that's obviously going to make sense, you also have to do it in a way that you're paying respect, and that you're doing it in a way that you're not. You want to do it in a way that you're honoring the person that you love, in the way that you'd listen to the conversations that they had. This is a real love that they had, not just between Coogler and Boseman, but between Boseman and the entire cast. So putting that all together, making sure it all works, and I agree, there's a lot of stuff inside of that script and inside of the movie that I think could have been cut, wasn't necessary, but I echo exactly what you said. Could I have done any better? No. Could a lot of people have done any better? No. He did a great job for what he did in the amount of time. That's the main thing. What people don't take into account, if you had your grievances with that script, think about the amount of time that he had to do it, get it shot, get it in the theater. Because remember, when Black Panther, the trailer dropped, the first one, Wakanda Forever, when it dropped, everybody before that was like, where is the trailer? We haven't heard, this movie's supposed to come out in November? Nobody's saying that. Nobody remembers that now. But everybody was saying, where is this? We haven't even seen it. The first trailer drops, nobody even said, oh, it's going to be, there was like, this is amazing. It was
so good, that trailer. Rob, you read through this article. I mean, obviously, it paints the movie in a little bit of a different light now as well. What did you take away from this?
Well, I mean, look, I think that hearing this, it's clear what the original draft would have been. What did he miss? There's a significant story point in this movie about what he would have missed. And that would have been fascinating to see what would that have meant on a number of different levels. And I think that, and dealing with the blip even, and it would have been fascinating to look at. But I think that said, he did, like you said, a phenomenal job restructuring the script and still making it relevant. I mean, there's been a lot of criticism that this movie has then focused on the women, which I thought was great. I thought it was a great example because you're dealing with mothers and daughters and siblings and friends and lovers and all of that. Like, it could have been anybody, but what does it mean when somebody that is the central focus of all of these different people's lives in different ways? What happens when they're absent? Okoye, what does it mean when your leader is gone? You're protecting the throne when the throne is left empty. What happens when your brother, who is your confidant, is gone? What happens when your son, you've lost your mother that loses a child? I mean, this turned the film into something different, but I think very, very relevant. And if you look at phase 4, family and what family means has been a ongoing theme through the entire phase 4. And I don't think ever so well illustrated as it does in this film.
Family and loss in phase 4.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, family and loss, and it's something that started in phase 3 with Guardians 2, even with the broken families, with Ego and Nebula and Thanos and Gamora. I really think that what Ryan Coogler had to do, it was forced upon him because of the situation. The man rose up and created something that might not have been what he wanted to do at first, but certainly is worthy of everybody involved and serves the memory of Chad Boseman. Is it true it's his birthday today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have been Chadwick Boseman's birthday today.
I mean, what a great honor to have this movie in the theater to honor the memory of what he meant to so many people.
I'll tell you what, one of the interesting things reading this article did for me, because for those of you who watch the show regularly, you know that I am staunchly in the camp that T'Challa should have still been the main character in this movie and they should have recast. I thought that was the better way to honor Chadwick Boseman. I thought that was the better way to continue staunchly in that thing. I will say this, reading this article, it gives me a deeper, the word's not sympathy, but maybe understanding of if you're Ryan Coogler and you've developed this script that's dealing with grief and loss as it was before and now Chadwick Boseman dies, and now you got to remake this new one. I'm trying to think of it through the lenses of the eyes of Ryan Coogler of how do you proceed making a movie about grief and loss with somebody else standing in the shoes of Chadwick Boseman? And listen, while I am still basically in the camp that I thought it would have been better for the film for them to use T'Challa as the main character and to recast him, I tell you what, this does give me a little bit of a different perspective to think, oh, Mike, I mean, it already would have been very, very hard. But understanding now where this movie was and what it was trying to be, it would have been maybe emotionally debilitating, I think, for maybe a Ryan Coogler or somebody else to take those themes and just recast.
And how hard would it have been for that actor that got recast?
It would have been a no-win situation.
In a situation like that, not from the audience perspective, but inside of that, trying to come into that with everybody dealing with that loss. And this was, if you look at the performances, it was very therapeutic for these actors and for Coogler, for everybody. Imagine being recast. So you come into that atmosphere, and I'm not saying whether or not it should have or shouldn't have. I'm just saying, imagine the situation. That is not easy to do. It's hard enough joining a sequel in general, or joining a cast of a show in season 2 or season 3, replacing the lead after a passing in a situation like that. I don't think people will understand how difficult that would have been.
Oh yeah, no, it would have been extremely difficult at the same time. Anyway, guys, question is for you. How do you feel about this? Like finding out about what the movie was going to be before the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman. Does it change your perception? It does for me a little bit of the movie that we ended up getting. Does it change your perception of how Herculean the task was even just to get it made? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 5 here, shall we? Rob, what is our 5th main topic today?
John, our 5th main topic comes from Fifi. Hey, gang. Today I woke up to the news that Legendary has signed a distribution contract with Sony, moving away from Warner Brothers. This was a possibility under the old regime, but I thought that David Zaslav worked his magic to retain them as partners. While Dune Part 2 will be distributed by Warner Brothers still, what does this mean for the studio moving forward? Thanks, and have a great one.
All right. Thanks a lot for writing that in, Fifi. Yeah, this news broke shortly after the John Campea Show ended yesterday. And listen, I know it's talking about the inside baseball stuff is not the sexiest thing in the world. This is seismic. This is huge. Legendary has made some of the biggest box office hits, some of the most popular movies over the last decade or so. And they have been staunchly, at Warner Brothers. They went over to Universal for a spell, went back to Warner Brothers. They did Kong versus Godzilla. They did Dune, all that kind of stuff. And now they have pulled up the stakes and they have moved over to Sony from Warner Brothers. Now, this is not surprising. This is the stupidest move, I think, in Hollywood executive history when Jason Kilar, then head of Warner Brothers, decided to pull a fast one on everybody and just announce, without consulting anybody, that they were going to take all their movies in 2021 and throw them all on HBO Max, which more than anybody else came as a big surprise to Legendary Pictures, who financed all the big things and had deals with them and were given no heads up. That day, that is the day. It wasn't yesterday when the announcement came out. That was the day that the bridge between Legendary and Warner Brothers was burned, and burned permanently. And you knew they weren't going to come back after that. Now, with David Zaslav and a new ownership coming in over Warner Brothers, I think you were on the show that day. You know, I said, it's going to be a really key moment here. Zaslav's got to be able to pull out some magic here and show that you can be the one to rebuild that bridge. You got to be the one to keep them in the stable. And we knew it was going to be a tall order. He wasn't able to do it. And they've pulled up stakes and they've now moved over. This comes to us from the folks over at the Hollywood Reporter who said the following. The Legendary deal, Legendary was the lead producer on two of the biggest hits of the pandemic, Dune and Godzilla vs. Kong. But the relationship with Warner Brothers grew strained when former Warner Media chief Jason Kilar didn't loop in Legendary when they abruptly announcing it was sending all of its 2021 theatrical titles simultaneously to HBO Max. Sony's commitment to theatrical distribution aligns with our vision of how to best derive the most value for Legendary's movies, said Legendary CEO Joshua Grode. The incredible slate of movies that Mary Patton has amassed are built for the theatrical experience, and we are excited about our partnership with Sony for this next phase of Legendary's growth. We are also grateful to Warner Brothers Pictures, who has been a valuable partner to Legendary over many years, and we look forward to continuing our work with the talented executives at Warner and Discovery. So it's done. And the very nice statement saying, but there's something in there that was really key. And that was, we love Sony because they are dedicated to the theatrical experience. Rob, we were at CinemaCon this year when the head of Sony Pictures got up and they boasted, hey guys, we are about theaters. That's our movies. We make our movies for movie theaters while everybody else is trying to figure out, can we just make them for streaming and all this kind of stuff. Now, I talked to a senior person at another studio this morning, at least a text message with them. And their perspective on this is, from what they heard, the defining thing, because apparently Warner Brothers made a big push to try to keep Legendary, but that the defining breaking point was simply this: Sony doesn't have a streaming platform. And they simply did not feel safe going with either Warner Brothers, who still, even under Zaslav, they have a big priority with HBO Max, as they should, or another outlet that did. Legendary is not about that. They want to make sure that whatever partner they were going to have was laser focused on the theatrical distribution of these films and how to best get them out to their audiences. And for them, apparently, Sony not even having their own streaming platform was a huge selling point for them. So again, either way, it's unfortunate that Zaslav was not able to rebuild that bridge that Kilar burned. But from Legendary's point of view, I can see, and I'll tell you what, this is a huge win for Sony. Massive. This is a big, big win for Sony. Christian, you've been following this very closely. We've talked about this before. What's your takeaway from this?
The take is that Mary Parent was very smart in how she played this from the get-go when she started having the conversations. That's probably ultimately, if you go and have these conversations, you'll probably find out it was those initial conversations. I agree thoroughly that because they were so pissed off of the way that was handled, right away they're like, screw this. Once we're out,
lawsuits were brought up.
Yeah. And they're like, screw this. Once we're out, we're out. And while the leadership was still not changed, and then they started getting on phone calls, making the preliminary calls, probably got into really nice phone calls with Mary a bunch of different times, who then they started to form this relationship throughout it. Then Zaslav might have just come in too late, because when he comes in, they're like, okay, yeah, this guy's not bad, but we really got a good thing now going with Mary. And she's really set this up. We've been talking to her now for 6 months, 7 months, and she's saying the right things. And as you said, they don't have a streaming platform, and we don't have to risk this. My question is, I know that they said Dune 2 is going to be released by Warner Brothers. So what about the TV show? Because the TV show, that's still HBO Max?
It's HBO Max.
Okay, so anything Dune related is HBO.
So all the properties they've already started with Warner Brothers, those licenses,
stay.
those agreements
Which
still
makes-
so
which- yeah, which-
Godzilla versus Kong
all makes
Dune
sense.
will still be Warner
But
Brothers.
it's a question now of the stuff that they produce in the future. This is something that Sony needed. It's something that Paramount should have gotten to the game, or Universal should have gotten.
Yeah,
to the
I
game,
agree.
because of the streaming. But either way, Sony, massive win for Sony. This is going to be really big for them. Legendary has proven over the course of the last 15, 20 years to be a real player. So, but it's not to say that one day Sony's not going to create a streaming service. They might not have one now, but
or acquire a pre-existing one.
100%. But as of right now, I see the move. But I do think that everyone talks about Zaslav. Everybody talks about Iger. Mary Parent made a big move here.
Yeah,
massive move, and she should start being in that conversation with, like, this is what a really good executive does. Start laying the groundwork. This was not something that just, oh, hey, why don't you come hang out with us? She's been working on this deal for a while, and she got it done.
Rob, when you're talking about Legendary now, this is kind of a double win for them, because while they get to now go to a new house that has makes them a higher priority, they still get to make their Dune movies and their Godzilla movies and stuff like that with Warner Bros. It's a good day for them, but like Christian was saying, huge day for Sony, a studio that's done pretty well since the pandemic sort of started. Them and Paramount have kind of really made names for themselves. You're right. Her name's got to be up there now. What's your takeaway from this?
Well, the thing that people have to remember, Legendary brings money.
A lot of money.
They're
Yeah,
a co-financing company here. So they're not just, when they say co-producers, what they really mean is they're paying for these movies.
And they're a full production house now, too.
They are. But I mean, if you look at places like Paramount has, when Larry Ellison gave his kids money, he gave David Ellison and Megan Ellison money. Megan Ellison formed Annapurna. David Ellison formed Skydance. And if you look at Skydance, is basically the de facto production company for Paramount's movies. Top Gun, Mission Impossible, Star Trek. It's always Skydance. Sony just has a nice producing partner now that has deep ties into the Chinese market, because Legendary has carved out distribution for themselves in the Chinese market.
And deep pockets.
Deep pockets. So what Sony has got, and Sony, they're committed to the theatrical experience and then exploiting. They've got PlayStation 5. You know, you make your video games, you do all these things, and they've got access now. If Legendary wants to make PlayStation Red Dead Redemption movie, brought to you by Legendary, whatever the hell they want to do. I mean, it's an incredible move, and now Warner Brothers does not have that producing partner. And those movies that Legendary produced, I mean, I was working with those guys when John Jashney and Thomas Tull started the company back on Superman Returns, back when they were going to have a sword for their logo. This was much better. They were a great company, and losing that money means Warner Brothers then now has to find that money to make their DC movies, because Legendary was producing all of the DC EU films, I think, for the most part, Pacific Rim, the Monsterverse, all of these very big budget tentpole movies. Legendary was like, where are they going to get that money now? So Warner Brothers, I mean, I'm sure Warner Brothers knew this was coming, so they figured out ways. And of course, Zaslav's probably figured out ways to finance.
He
these
knew
films.
it was probably a long shot.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But still, Sony's like you said, Mary Parent's like, well, let's get started, boys. What are we going to make?
Rob, you touched on something that I think could be maybe the most exciting thing for them, because Christian, one of the things Rob was saying about, and we've overlooked this, they now have their own division at Sony for making their PlayStation games.
Yep.
Into movies, into TV shows. And now you've got a partner like Legendary that can get behind things like, I mean, a God of War thing is all, but a God of War or these other properties that they have. Now all of a sudden, these projects can have Legendary behind them. I mean, how significant is that for that whole subdivision?
Massive. And they might not have streaming, a streaming service, but they're still making stuff for Netflix, and they're still making other things too that they could.
You just said it.
Yeah.
They can make stuff for everybody.
They can make stuff for everybody. So that's the thing, and that's probably another reason. Not just because of theatrical, they're not beholden to one specific platform. They can sell it to wherever they want to go now, make shows, make stuff throughout the video games, do whatever they want to do, and have the budgets that Rob was just talking about. But it's absolutely, they have this catalog of stuff from the past and the future, and the stuff that's coming up now, the future, and this is one of the biggest wins for Sony and for Mary Parent thus far.
And for Legendary, I was going to say for Legendary 2, because you brought it up, I want to touch on it here. For Legendary 2, I think Legendary is probably looking at that Sony deal and they're saying, Legendary Pictures presents Red Dead Redemption movie? I mean,
course.
they got to be salivating at opportunities.
She's probably
like
been
that now.
pitching this stuff since the beginning of these
You're
conversations.
probably right, yeah.
Like, it's like it's thinking about on the conversation that she's having with them to say, look, I understand you're unhappy. These are the things that we think Sony can bring to you. We have this available. You'll be able to do this. This is stuff that was being set up throughout because they're going to have this contemplation. If you're sitting down, you have a business, and you're like, all right, Warner Brothers wants to keep us. Other places have some pitches, but Sony's really got the sweet deal. What's Sony offering? She's been pitching stuff for them to have for months.
Yeah.
For months. That's why they left, because what she has been, she knew this is a massive deal for her. Sweeten the pot, do what you can do, show everything that you have, and deliver. And they're going to. What does it mean for Spider-Man? Are they gonna have
Well,
anything
that's
to do
what I
with
was going to
Spider-Man?
say.
Yeah.
I mean, Legendary is like, hey, guess what, Disney?
Oh my God! Can you imagine a Legendary getting involved with
what I'm
Spider-Man
saying.
stuff?
I mean,
Yeah.
then
And
why
Marvel.
wouldn't they?
And Marvel.
They're going to co-produce Legendary. I bet you $1 million that they're going to co-produce the next
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
what's Kevin Feige going right now? Hey, let me talk to Legendary. You
Yeah,
know what
I mean,
It's like,
because Disney, like, hey, we lost $4 billion on streaming.
Yeah.
We don't have, bar banks. Our positions changed a little bit. Legendary is like, hey, guess what? We want to have. You know what we've been doing for the last 15 years? Producing superhero movies.
But even beyond Spider-Man, now you're talking about the Spider-Man connected universe too.
Right.
Like the stuff
Oh.
like Kraven, whatever. The other characters you want to bring, now you put Legendary
Yep.
on those.
it's just a massive deal.
Is this you? Again, I understand. For a lot of film fans, we care about who are the actors, what.
Yeah.
But believe me, this is potentially very exciting.
And also, Legendary can go to the Chinese market and guarantee releases.
Yeah, they've got a lot more ins there too. All right, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Legendary has jumped ship. They've gone over. I mean, just like a bad STD, the Jason Kilar just keeps giving and ruining things for you a year later. But Legendary has left Warner Brothers now. They've landed at Sony. I think Christian's right. This is a huge, huge deal for Sony. How do you guys think about this? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and leave those thoughts there. All right, guys, with that all down, now it's time for us to hear from you. What are your thoughts, theories, opinions, and questions? We are now opening up the super chats. If you've got them, firing them on in right now. Again, get them in quickly. We only leave them open for a couple of minutes, and we will address those here in the next part of the show. But before we get to that, we want to take a second and thank the main sponsor of our show, my mobile service provider, Ryan Reynolds' Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. This holiday season, the best deal in wireless can only be found at Mint Mobile. Right now, when you switch to Mint Mobile and buy any 3-month plan, you'll get another 3 months free. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order and activate from home with eSIM while saving tons on phone plans starting at just $15 a month. Guys, I've been using Mint Mobile long before this holiday deal, and I have to say, it is the perfect time to switch. Since I switched to Mint Mobile, I've been spending 1/3 of what I used to spend on my mobile service with the other big name company. And with this buy 3 months, get 3 months free, not only is it a great choice for you, but it makes great gifts for the people you love. Mint Mobile's best offer of the year is here. By going online only and with eSIM and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes those significant savings on to you. All of their plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily and effortlessly with eSIM. Or if you need a new device, for a limited time, get 6 months of free service when you buy a selected device and plan. So guys, for a limited time, buy any 3-month Mint Mobile plan and get 3 more months free by going to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show. Okay, guys, with that down, let's now turn it over to you and hear from you guys. Rob, what are people super chatting in here?
John Bond is here. Do you have any movie that you would like to see remade into a Star Wars movie? Mine is Where Eagles Dare. That's actually not a bad choice.
Movies that could be remade with a Star Wars skin on it. I mean, after watching Andor, this is going to go back. Iron Eagle.
Great movie.
Iron Eagle with Louis Gossett Jr.
Great movie.
Of course, the Top Gun ripoff of the era. But if you look at the story of that, the idea of, but X-Wing fighter pilots instead, I think Iron Eagle could be remade into a Star
Who's he
Wars movie.
listening to in the cockpit?
What's that?
Who's he listening to?
Oh, he's listening to Max Rebo.
Okay.
In the cockpit, of course.
Oh,
not Jedi Rocks.
Right.
What you got one that you think could be reskinned into a Star Wars movie?
Well, I mean, the first thing I think of is you know, it's what you always hear of. It's Die Hard on a boat. Well, it's Die Hard in Star Wars, right? Like Die Hard in Star Wars would be interesting, you know, whether and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, because I think a Jedi being trapped inside, like I think if you go, every answer I have is always Old Republic stuff.
Right.
If a Jedi is trapped inside of it, because remember the Sith before they were rule of two, there were many.
Yeah.
A Jedi trapped in, like, you know, with a Sith takeover somewhere and has to fight his way out all the way through. Be kind of interesting.
I like it. Yeah. Rob, what if they finally made Star Trek good and you remade Star Trek into Star Wars and said, like, the Federation was actually the Republic fleet?
And you hired J.J.
Do you not
Abrams.
like everything Star Trek?
No.
You can hire J.J. Abrams to direct it.
I would, okay, to be serious, honestly, I like your idea. What if you made Lawrence of Arabia, but Lawrence was a Sith?
Oh.
That'd be cool.
Oh, I like that.
There you go.
I like that a lot. All right. What's next?
Quality Not Included says, see the new movie poster for Universal's Cocaine Bear? I did.
Yep.
Directed by Elizabeth Banks, produced by Lord Miller, inspired by true events. Will release February 2023.
I think when they first were we not still at Collider when they first announced this movie? I thought I remember. I mean, this was years ago
Yeah.
that they
Makes
announced
sense,
this, right? And now it's finally. Yeah, the poster is the reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
This bear just with the cocaine.
It seems like an insane movie considering that it really happened. That's
Yeah.
that's the sell. The sell is like, because if you just say it's about a bear that did a lot of cocaine, and you're like, oh, okay, it's the same guys that did the mean one, and you're like, no, this actually happened.
really based on a true story.
That is what's fascinating to me. I didn't realize. I think I did, and then remembered that Elizabeth Banks directed it. So I'm very curious about this one.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. All
Say
right.
hello to my little cub.
Yeah.
Oh dear. How dad jokes. All right. what's
Gabriel said, will Riverdale be in Secret Wars?
Riverdale is Secret Wars. What are you talking about? It's
That's
going to be
the
all
twist.
part of that. All right. What's next?
A Sith Loud says, yo, Rob and Ray, so I decided to give For All Mankind a chance, and yo, I am hooked. That first episode had me shocked and oddly upset. This is a fantastic show.
Don't
Yes,
spoil
it
it.
is.
Don't spoil it.
This is one of the rare things. I still, especially as a series,
Look,
considering how short your attention span is, I cannot believe
He's already asleep.
he's already asleep. I can't believe you got through it. All
I forgot what we were talking about.
So good.
It's okay.
right. What's next?
Al Renshaw says, what's Christian's thoughts on the Marvel DC crossover Santa idea that John proposed yesterday? I would love to see that come to life.
Okay. So, especially since James Gunn took over, a lot of people have been asking, okay, now can we get the DC Marvel crossover? Saying that's not going to happen. But I can't remember what sparked the idea. A holiday, it was the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. Wait a minute. You make it outside of canon. You do it like a holiday special one year. And Santa goes across all the realities and has to, because the Heat Miser has returned with his minions of evil. And Santa has to go and recruit heroes from different dimensions. And he gets DC heroes and Marvel heroes. And they all have to team up with Santa Claus to fight the Heat Monster and his little fire monsters. Do you green light it? What do you think?
Probably not.
Come on, that's like the ultimate holiday special.
But either, I think that I'm with you guys on. I wasn't expecting much on that Guardians holiday special at all.
I was expecting nothing.
It turned out to be so charming, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And I only don't know how much you can capture that kind of lightning in a bottle, right? So, the crossover idea between Marvel and DC, I think it's more realistic inside of two studios figuring it out, more so than it is having the fans of both franchises accept it.
Yeah.
That's the difference. It's not the like it's more possible that two studios go, okay, look, let's figure out a deal and we'll do one big movie. But then watching all of the two fan bases, it's like watching Red Sox and Yankee fans going after each other and imagining, that they're going to mix and match two Yankees and Red Sox teams.
Can you imagine, though? Okay, here's the thing. I don't know how they would do it. All I can see is that in this holiday special, what if Superman and Captain America exchange gifts? That's your image.
It would be amazing.
That's your image.
It'd
You
be
just have
amazing.
them both handing each other presents.
It'd be a lot of fun to watch, but it's just and the amount of money though that it would cost to produce that special and not get a theatrical return on it. There's no way they would ever
Favored
do it.
Nations.
Okay,
It's on stream. It's a cross promotion between streaming platforms.
and then it goes to Legendary. Or
Okay,
Sony.
but what if before he went in the ice, Steve Rogers had a girlfriend. She got pregnant. And then but before they could get married or anything, he goes in the
Captain
ice.
America.
And her name was Elizabeth Kent. And she has a son named Jonathan.
Well,
And then
Jonathan,
it
I like that name.
Turns out Superman and Captain America are grandfather and grandson.
You're a bold man.
I'm printing you money, guys. Come on. I'm printing you money. All right, what's next?
Jedediah Elias says, I decided to listen to the God of War Ragnarok score earlier today since I've heard so many great things. One of the best I've ever experienced. Guess I know what I'm asking Santa for Christmas.
I watched the 15-hour cutscene movie of God of War
new one?
Ragnarok. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was so taken. I never even noticed the music, to be honest with you. But sometimes that is like the ultimate compliment you can give to the score because it just immerses you into what you're watching. I really loved it. I'm going to have to do what you just said. I'm going to have to sit down and actually just listen to the soundtrack because everybody's raving about it. I'm going to have to do that. All right, what's next?
Jedediah Elias says,
we just did that one,
nope,
sorry.
Seconds from
Yeah.
Disaster says, Nate Moore told E-Man in an interview it was too soon to come in every day and seeing someone else in place of Chadwick. E-Man is the guy that was the beginning of the recast T'Challa movement.
And listen, I still believe they should have done that. I still believe they should have recast him, but especially after reading that article in that interview with him, it does put it in a little bit of a different perspective for me. And I am, while I've always understood it because their basis for making the decision to not recast T'Challa was based on what they felt was the most respectful and best way to move forward. I disagreed, but I respected it. I now have more sympathy for it too. Like now I can I still would have made a different decision, but I really see where you're coming from. That does make a lot of sense. So I get it. All right, what's next?
Jai CSC says, might be a tough one to answer, but if a theoretical MCU Hulk movie released, how would the gross earnings be split between Universal and Marvel Disney?
It would be the same thing of any production studio and distribution company at all. So it would be the exact same way. Like a lot of times, some of the bigger movies that are put out today, the production company is the same as the distribution company, but there are a lot of films that are not that way. The traditional model is you have a studio that makes a movie and then a distributor that distributes it, so it would be handled the exact same way as any other
It's like
film.
Sony, right? Like how
Yep.
Sony handles Spider-Man.
Exactly, which is exactly why Disney does not want to make a Hulk movie because they
Yeah.
don't want to split that up. They want to distribute their own films. All right, what's next?
Mattuine says, I can see the next Seuss spinoffs. Horton slaughters a who? The Sneetches who got stitches. One fish, two fish, red fish, you sleep with the fish.
I love it. Now we're gonna now what you've done is the entire chat board is gonna be now just overflowed with people coming up with alternative Dr. Zeus, horror Dr. Zeus things. Now, okay, green eggs and ham. I
was
don't know.
gonna say hands. Green eggs and hands.
Green eggs and hands. I love it. All right. Why are those eggs green? All right. What's next?
Jim One says, I'm doing a Bond marathon, and the more times I watch Octopussy, the more I think it's underrated. It's now one of my favorite in the series. Am I crazy? No.
I like Octopussy.
I do too. Kamal Khan is cool. Octopussy herself is cool. There's Q comes in a hot air balloon, and you have an army of female ninjas fighting dudes. Come on.
What's not to love? By the way, let's go ahead, Jonathan. What are you saying?
I was gonna say that was the first Bond movie I ever saw because my parents owned it on VHS in the 80s.
That is
So-
also the first Bond movie I ever saw.
Really?
Yep.
Nice.
By the way, side note, Robert and I were talking about this. Actually, I texted Rob last night about this, and we talked a little bit about it this morning. I came across this theory. Now, I think a lot of us have thought this at one point, but I came across this theory. I don't know if you saw this, Christian. One of my favorite Michael Bay movies is The Rock. I love that movie.
Sure.
The theory that Sean Connery's character
Is Bond?
in The Rock is actually James Bond. And I stumbled across this video on YouTube yesterday. I can't remember the name of it, but it was literally like a 20-minute video that very methodically broke down with historical details and everything. And they said at the beginning of the video, look, I know this sounds like just a fan theory, but by the end of this, I think I'm going to have you convinced. I'm like, all right. And I watched it, and I texted Rob, and as soon as I was done watching, I'm like, Sean Connery's character in The Rock was James Bond.
Didn't they tease that till like back in when it came out?
It was.
I thought
There
everybody
was little
talking
whispers
that.
about that, right? And I think one of the writers even kind of implied it once. But after watching that video last night, I'm like, No, you've got me 100% convinced that Sean Connery in The Rock was actually James Bond.
You're bashed.
That's one of the greatest lines in cinematic history, by the way. And I'm like, go watch that video. I think you're going to be a kick out of it.
I always
It's
thought
a
it
great
was
video
yeah.
because I watch it like over the weekend
Well,
too.
they tease it when they're first prepping him, when they're talking about him and what he's done in like ex-agent or whatever, agent or whatever. I can't remember
What do they call it?
was.
The SAS or
Something like that. But yeah.
Loved it. All right, what's next?
You're the man now, dog.
Ben Rayner says best Tom Hanks co-star: Bill Paxton from Apollo 13, Stanley Tucci from The Terminal, or Wilson.
I was
from
about to say it's
Castaway.
Wilson.
I vote for Wilson. That ball got snubbed.
Listen, don't laugh. The reason why I would say you seriously have to take Wilson into consideration is how many more emotional experiences have you had than when that ball was just floating away from him in the ocean? Like you really felt torn, like more torn up than when Lieutenant Dan had his legs blown off. I mean, I really felt it. It was kind of crazy that way. But I would have to go to his co-star in Bosom Buddies, which was, didn't he die recently? The guy who was his
No.
co-star?
He was in. Wasn't he in? Oh yeah,
I can't
he
remember.
did.
Not
Or
sure.
maybe did he pass away recently?
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, call
You're
me.
talking about Peter Scolari.
Yeah.
Was that his name? Did he pass away, or am I misremembering that?
But is Meg Ryan?
Oh, yeah.
He
By
passed
the way,
away.
everybody talks about a couple of their movies, but for me,
Joe versus Volcano.
no. Everybody talks about that one. Nobody talks about You've Got Mail.
I like You Got
So they're
Mail.
cute, right?
I love that movie. That movie's fantastic, and it's still oddly relevant today, even though the technology, like nobody uses what was it, AOL? Nobody uses AOL.
Did you
anymore.
know that they were supposed to, that Tom Hanks was offered Harry Met Sally? Turned it down.
Really?
I didn't know that until recently because we watched Sleepless in Seattle, my wife and I was like, why didn't they do Harry Met Sally? I love Billy Crystal, but I'm sure, why didn't he get offered? And sure enough, he did get offered, and he turned it down.
Well, it clearly worked pretty well with
It
Billy
did.
Crystal.
It did. Billy
Yeah.
Crystal was great.
Yeah, he
All right.
passed away in 2021.
Wow.
He did.
Okay,
Okay,
you're
I
right.
thought I remembered that. All right, what's next?
Brandon Nezamuddin says, have any of you watched Wednesday yet? I saw all 8 episodes, and it's wildly entertaining. Jenna Ortega is phenomenal.
Hear great things.
I did not like X. I'm one of the few people I know who didn't like X, but I really liked her in it. And I didn't even realize when we saw the first couple of trailers that was her. And so I have not watched Wednesday yet, but I was out on Saturday night. I needed to get together with somebody out of town. And while I was out, Ann texted me, says, I'm watching Wednesday. You need to watch Wednesday. So Ann is 3 episodes in. She's now waiting for me to watch the 3 episodes as well so I can get caught up because she wants to watch it with me. But I know my wife is raving. Have you had a chance to check it out?
No, I've heard nothing but just amazing things about it. People have been raving about it.
All right, what's next?
There we go. In my humble opinion, reviews says these would be great. Bear in the Big Blue House of Horrors, Dora the Exterminator, the Dark Magic School Bus.
I like that. That's pretty good. Somebody is writing in the Blues Clues. Needs to be a murder mystery.
Oh, man.
Have some brutal killing and Blues Clues has
I like,
to solve it.
Dora the Exterminator. It could be like the old James Glickenhaus, Robert Ginty, the Exterminator, where she's there with a flamethrower and a motorcycle suit on.
Dora the Body Cavity Explorer. Anyway, all right, what's next?
I wasn't thinking that, but
I mean in a horror way, not a kinky way. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Wraith X7 says, have you guys heard that the Netflix series 1899 is accused of plagiarizing the Black Silence comic?
I did hear about that, but having not watched 1899,
I also watched a video on this. It does not.
all right.
There are some similar ideas in it, but they did not plagiarize.
Yeah, I don't take any merit into it until it's proven, because people can accuse until prove it, and then
I mean, the
and
Black
then
Silence comic also takes things from other things. I mean, everything takes something
Yeah.
from out. Yeah, no.
All right, what's next?
Groupie Don't Play says the Grinch appears to be getting a wide release, not just in New York and LA, for awards consideration.
No.
Regal is promoting it via their socials.
No.
Happy holidays.
No, is that real? Taylor, you got to fact check that.
Okay.
If that's real, I think that's glorious. I want to see this so bad now. It's going to be so awful. I can't wait. All right, what's next?
it'd be so awful.
Casey Mack says the first poster came out yesterday for Cocaine Bear.
Yep.
And the plot for this film sounds hilarious. I can't wait to see it in February.
Jonathan, you want to pull up, see if you can find that poster and bring up so
It looks like a
Find
Sin
that
City
poster. Find that
sequel.
poster.
just because everybody's been talking about, just so you can see, because I looked at this morning in my news feed. We didn't bother doing a story about it, but I mean, it's a perfect poster.
Yeah, it really is.
For a movie that's titled that. Were you able to find a poster for that, Jonathan?
Looking.
All right, we can come back to it a little bit later.
Yeah.
Oh, Ray's
Yeah,
pointing it out.
Oh yeah, right here. Yeah.
We got it. All right, let's just so this thing we're talking about, people will know what we're kind of referencing here.
And everything froze on me. So.
Oh,
we'll
everything.
just move
Okay,
on.
never mind that. When you get a chance, we'll come back to it later.
Here it is.
Oh, there it is. Look at that. First of all, awesome. It looks a little bit like a Sin City poster.
That's I know.
That's what
Look,
he said,
just like that.
But it's my God. You don't have to know anything about this movie. I would just look at this poster and think, I want to watch this.
Look at all that wasted yayo. Come on, man.
It kind of looks like it would be made by the same people who made The Grinch.
Yeah, I know, right?
Speaking of another poster,
We found actually new footage from the Grinch.
Oh, man, come on now.
Ray like
Thanks
that
for
one.
that.
And it will be coming to Regal. So
And it
very
is
exciting.
coming to Regal. That's crazy. What were you going to say, Ray, about a new
No,
poster?
no, that's the poster that.
Oh, that's the
just
poster.
dropped.
Brand new
Yeah.
poster.
That's gonna be the thumbnail for
The
that
new hotness.
segment.
Every segment. All right, what's next?
Alan Ling says, "Hey, John and crew, saw Glass Onion twice this past weekend. I loved it. I wish I could see it more in theaters. Worried a bit about the third movie. Ryan Johnson set a high bar now for these movies."
Listen, I was worried about the second one because he set a high bar with I unabashed. I love Knives Out. This movie here's what's great about this movie. It was definitively Benoit Blanc, but it was a definitively different movie than Knives Out was. And you know what? I did not like when I first heard that it was going to be an entirely different cast. I mean, obviously it's a new mystery, yes, but I thought it would have been great if they brought over maybe one or two characters. Maybe Ana de Armas's character would be an apprentice of his or something, whatever. But you know what? After watching it, the first 5 minutes of this movie, have you seen it yet?
No, not yet.
The first 5 minutes of the movie, just when they're introducing the characters, I'm like, this movie's a winner already. Just as they're, and when they introduced Dave Bautista's character with his mom, oh my God, I just felt, this thing's great. I'm glad you had a chance to see it. But yes, now he's got the third one. The bar set high, but it was set high with the first one, and he followed through on the second one. So cannot wait to see the third one. Really looking forward to Poker Face too, that Ryan Johnson's got coming out. So, all right, what's next?
Gabrielle says, "Jonathan, stock by the day?"
Options and moving on.
Options and moving on. There we go. All right, what's next?
Sin Vendetta says, "Hey, Christian, you've known both John and Rob for a good minute. Got a favorite story about either of them or both?"
Yeah, I mean, for sure. John, I think I'll give a more sentimental one for John. John did a roast. Well, I had a roast for one of my birthdays, and John came.
Oh, I remember
and It's
that.
actually on I think it's on this channel. You did your speech for what you gave to me, and I thought most people are going up there telling some very funny jokes. John gave a really nice speech about me, and I think you said it the other day on your stream. Is that we have a type of relationship to where we can we'll both kind of bounce back and forth, and if we don't like something, we'll tell each other, and I think that's why we've consistently worked well together. But John can do that as much as you can see that he can be a stone-faced killer at times. He's got a pretty big heart. So, and same thing goes for Rob. But my favorite stuff with Rob is when Rob showed up at the Houston event. And I mean, the man was fit for wrestling. I mean, you were like that coat. He brings in this coat and he comes out and he has this whole big entrance and he's looking at it. He comes up to me and he's just like, "You got us a wrestling ring." And I was like, I didn't. You're like, and we just had some really phenomenal. We had a great week.
It was funny because when you invited me to that event, you said, "Don't tell anybody you're coming."
right.
So like I show up by myself and like I couldn't go. I didn't want to show my face, and I ended up
surprised. Yeah,
going to the waterfront, going, "This is as far away as I can get."
it was amazing. It was really cool.
All right, what's next?
The Swifties said, "With the mean one and a horror Bambi, I want a horror Berenstein Bears movie called
Barroween.
Barroween."
Heroin, like heroin, I think.
Oh, heroin, like Barrowin. Okay, Barrowin.
Listen, that's a good mix. Berenstein. So sorry. According to
Bernstein.
according to Peacemaker, it's Berenstein.
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 Stain. Everyone thinks.
But
Mandela
didn't they
effect.
say that the actual?
No, the
thing is-
Mandela effect is that you think it's Berenstein, but it's not It's Berenstain. Stain.
Berenstein.
Okay, but I thought in I could be wrong about this. Thought in Peacemaker they corrected everybody and
Opposite.
said it's actually Berenstein.
Opposite. Everybody thought it was Stein,
Okay.
and then it.
I thought it was Bernstein
I
Bear.
read it to my daughter every night.
That
and I
is
looked at it,
right
yeah.
for a crossover with a Goldilocks and the Three Bears kind of. Who's sleeping
Yeah.
in my bed? Somebody great. Let's eat them. I mean, you could do that. All right. What's next?
William Bang says, John, I love the t-shirt you wore on Ask Me Anything on Sunday. Great going, John.
What was the T-shirt that I wore? Guys in the live chat, if you guys remember which one it was. I think it was the I've got a bad feeling about this shirt.
Nice.
I think that was the shirt I was wearing. Well, thank you. Yeah, I really do. I haven't worn that shirt in a while. I pulled it down. I was like, yeah, I like this. All right, what's next?
Tucker Flynn says, off the top of your heads, what is the most recent great Christmas holiday movie? Seems like a lot of the great ones are oldies. I don't know. Maybe just me.
That's the thing. When I watched this with no expectation, because I was telling everybody, Christian, that I always step and watch the midnight release of everything that comes out on Disney Plus, right? Did not do that for this holiday special.
yeah.
So I'll watch it later. That's one of the things why I think it stands out to me so much is because I can't remember the last time there was a holiday special or a Christmas movie that made me go, that just made me fall in love with it the way that the Guardians holiday special did.
Well, you said it on the thing too. It's like I thought the same thing you did. I thought it was gonna be like a throwaway thing that didn't really have much meaning, and it did. And you were actually very insightful yesterday when you told me where it came down into the phase that it takes place around the same time Hawkeye and everything. That makes a lot of sense to me. But it was the way that it all played together, the stuff that works emotionally, and the bits were funny. And the bits worked, and and when you shut your brain off, not shut your brain off to where you smash yourself in the head with a hammer because it's smart. It's very smart. It's witty. But when you stop thinking, hey, everything needs to connect. You just take it as a one-off Christmas special, and it's not a throwaway, but it's a one-off, and it's just a fun, feel-good thing that you don't have to connect everything. It's just enjoy your holiday season.
The first thing that came to mind, and I'm embarrassed to admit how much I love this movie. I love The Holiday with Jack Black, Cameron Diaz, and is Jude Law,
Kate Winslet, and
Kate Winslet. Yeah, and it even has Eli Wallach is in it. He plays a composer for movies. I love that movie.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Toon Talks says, hey guys, I saw the Puss in Boots Last Wish early screening on Saturday, and it was genuinely so fantastic. Please don't sleep on this movie when it comes out December 21st. Is that what
Can you scroll down just a bit there, Jonathan, so you can see what that says?
December 21st. Yep.
I'll tell you what, I was sleeping on this movie. But the trailer got my attention a bit, but now hearing these reviews coming out about it and sounding like maybe the movie does live up to the trailer, I'm there. Thanks for giving us your perspective on that because, I ain't going to sleep on this one now. I'm actually now quite excited to see it. All right. I mean, I may not go with Taylor, but I'm definitely going to go
Just
see
boots and a sword.
That's definitely no boots or a sword. All right. What's next?
That's all you're wearing?
That's why I said just
boots and a sword and a cape. That's
What
it.
more could you need?
John said no boots, just the sword.
I'm all sword, baby.
All right. What's next?
Al Renshaw says, Cocaine Bear poster, let's go.
I mean, it looks great. It is such a, it's a cross between Sin City and a 300 poster.
Yeah.
It looks, definitely.
Yeah, that's what it is. Right? I think that's the font. Is that not the 300 font?
100%, yeah.
Yeah, it's totally down for this. All right, what's next?
Hoopsuni says, saw Glass Onion, and the first 10 minutes had me nervous, but when the actual plot kicked in, I absolutely loved it. Not quite as good as the first, in my opinion, though.
I think it might be. I think it might even be a little bit. I'm not sure. Again, I got to watch it a second time to really formulate my thoughts on this, but I think there's a good chance I may like it more than the first. And again, the mystery is a very different type of mystery. I love how there was references back to the first film. The very fact that the movie starts with a puzzle, I thought was great. The individual characters are wonderful. I loved the Kate Hudson character. The Kate Hudson character. You haven't seen the movie yet, Rob, right? For those of you who've seen the movie, come on. There's a little bit of Robert Meyer Burnett in that Kate Hudson character. If you know, I'll wait for Rob to see the movie to see what I'm talking about there. But there's a little element. There's a little element there. But anyway, I thought it was fantastic. I cannot wait to watch it again. All right, what's next?
I'm gonna look closely at that now. A Sith Loud says, yo, crew, you guys should go check out music by Murs. It's called BT. Oh, Big Time Spending 2. It's made out of Legos. It's about buying physical media and geek culture. Rob, I think you would love it.
Sounds like it.
Count me in. Big Time
I
Spending
have
2.
no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, a music video is what he was saying.
Yeah.
There's a music video that this is about. Okay.
I mean, I was thinking the Korean band BTS. Is there a sequel band?
BT dollar sign?
Yeah, BT dollar.
That's my
I'll check
knockoff
that out.
band. That's my spoof band.
Yeah.
I dance with nothing but a sword. You'll love it. It's great. All right, what's next?
And yes.
And the sword's not where you think it is.
TJ Slabdragon Watson says Banana Splits started this horror trend, horror parody trend.
That sounds familiar.
Parody.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I can't remember it exactly, but that does sound familiar.
Yeah, because there was that evil Banana Splits movie.
All right, what's next?
Devin Pangrekar says thoughts on the Wednesday series.
Again, we haven't watched it yet. My wife has watched the first 3 episodes. She's loving it, so I got to get caught up with her so I can watch the rest of it with her. So thoughts on it coming soon.
Can
Yep.
I say something really quick about Wednesday? This
Yep.
comes to us from Deadline from 10 minutes ago. It says Wednesday Netflix has made its way into the top.
You need
10,
to speak into your microphone there. Don't forget.
top 10 in all 93 countries, and it sits at number 1 in 83 of them. So that's pretty cool.
That's not bad.
That's
well done
huge.
for Wednesday. I'm looking forward to checking it out. All right, what's next?
Jedediah Elias says, what happened to member chats?
Member chat video went up yesterday.
Yeah, it was a great one, too.
Yeah, it was a really good. So what happens now with our channel member chats? When you guys send them in during the show, Ray and Taylor, I believe, collect them up, and then every couple of days we do a dedicated video for only our channel members. And by the way, big thank you to all of you guys who are our channel members. And they record a video answering all of those questions. So yeah, those go up every couple of days. One went up just yesterday.
And it was mildly, I think, well, actually, greatly amusing, I have to say.
All right, what's next?
Mr. Godzilla says, if Legendary gets into contact with the MCU, have them do a Savage Land and Devil Dinosaur film. Hey, man, I'd be all
Well, no,
over
here's the
that.
thing. Legendary will not be producing Marvel movies.
No.
They'll be producing Sony movies, and Spider-Man is a Sony movie that's being produced by Marvel.
Right.
And you could have Legendary then team up with them on that. But what you're not going to see is Legendary coming in and start doing other Marvel-owned characters, only stuff that's under the Sony umbrella. All right, what's next?
Casinema Reviews says Glass Onion was so disappointing.
Ooh.
Not a single reference to a donut. Just kidding. I saw it a second time yesterday. Not better than the first, but definitely crazier.
That I love the donut speech. The donut speech from the first one still sticks with me a lot. But I mean, there was it's a wonderful whodunit because by the time the movie ends, see, I hate whodunits that they get to the big reveal at the end and you're like, there is no way an audience member would have been able to determine this because they slip in 2 or 3 facts at the end that was not shown to the audience later, right? That always frustrates me. This came down to the end. There was some great misdirection. I thought it was the one character for a while. Then I became 100% convinced it was this other character. And then by the time they reveal it at the end, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah. When they revealed what the actual outcome is, you're like, oh yeah, when you put the pieces together of everything that they showed you as an audience, it could have been deduced. And I love that about it. Those are my favorite types of whodunits. So they did a great job with that. All right, what's next?
Let's see. Marla Jehovah says, hi, Campea crew. After watching Andor as a series, I have come to the realization that I would much rather Knights of the Old Republic brought to life as a TV series. Thoughts?
No, it all depends on what the story is. It all depends on what you do as a story. Like you can go, it depends on how you want to adapt the Knights of the Old Republic story. Like you can come up with something completely different and that would work better as a movie. Or you could do it another way and it would work absolutely perfect as a series. It all depends on what the story they're trying to tell. It's like you ask, would Hawkeye work better as a series or as a movie?
Series, it was fantastic.
Well, the series, which was a total turd, but I mean, it all depended on what story they wanted to tell with it, because one story would have been better for a series, one story would have been better for a movie. So it really all depends. But Christian, you have a very strong opinion.
I do. I've been saying it for a while. I agree with the viewer 100%. I think Knights of the Republic, and their opinion, my opinion, would work very well as a series. I don't disagree that it could also work as a couple of movies.
If they adapted it as such.
But it's so detailed, what I think that they don't do for some reason, whether it's movies, books, comics, whatever. Look at it the same way you would look at a Lord of the Rings or the Harry Potter or any Game of Thrones. Take the story and adapt it, use some of the stuff that really worked. But what I think that they should do with the Old Republic in general is introduce it as a movie and then take a whole bunch, take a room, creative writers, plan out a big movie, plan out a series, plan out a movie that'll come out, convincing, a nice little Republic movie that maybe combines with the series. I still think that's one of the ways to do their season finales is do like a big movie like Mandalorian. Maybe do when it's a series finale, maybe it comes out in a December of 2026 or whatever it is. And the finale is like a December 16th. And then the finale of the whole series comes out the following week.
The problem, of course, the logistical problem with that is that the only people then that can go see the movie are the people who are Disney Plus subscribers and watch the show.
Well, yeah, I mean but you're also banking on a show that's been out for that long, and you're basically it's a Star Wars movie, and you'd say you have a chance to catch up on these seasons to see it, but this show's popular enough that you would assume that it's going to do very well. The same way that a Sex and the City movie did very well. The same way, now I shouldn't say the Saints of Newark because that didn't do very well, but but there are movies that are based off TV shows that do well.
Right, but the ones that did well were the ones that were shows that were now canceled and done, and then
that's what I'm saying. I'm
to
talking about it as a series, like it's a series finale. Like the last one ever is going to be released in the theater in like 2027 because then it plays out because then you can release it in Disney Plus 3 months later after it, and that's the end of the Mandalorian. Is you end it in the theater.
Well, of all the Star Wars properties that exist in any kind of extended universe, the Knights of the Old Republic might be the most beloved.
Yeah.
And the idea that it was not something that was looked at or talked about in the last 10 years as a series for TV, especially Disney Plus, I would have thought that would have been the very first thing.
She thinks it's too inside baseball, man.
Well,
but that's a failure of creativity. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
James Gunn wouldn't have made that mistake.
James Gunn also made the lowest grossing DC movie there was.
But it's fantastic.
It is fantastic. But when you're the head of the company, though, and I'm somebody who believes Kathy Kennedy has to go. So, but let me play devil's advocate for a second. When you're the head of a company, you have to think beyond more than just that, right? So you've got to look at that, and because that what you just brought up, that Knights of the Old Republic is a little inside baseball. That's not wrong. It is inside baseball. The average movie fan has never heard of Knights of the Old Republic.
But if it's a good story, it's a good story.
But if it's a good story, it's a good story. And who knows, maybe like when those piles of scripts come on their desk, maybe the treatment that got turned in for it wasn't a good one. And they said, well, we're going to pass on that for now. But the nice thing is, it's still under their roof. It's not like there's a statute of limitations that if they didn't make a Knights of the Old Republic now, then they can never do one. So it's one that they can still do.
And it takes place like 1,000 years before, so it's always open.
See, the funny thing is, though, if you look at the with all the other pop culture that exists, there's a video on YouTube. It's in a ship where all these Sith, they ignite all their lightsabers.
Yeah.
That's from the game.
Old Republic. That's the Old Republic. Yeah.
Not Knights of the Old Republic. That's Old Republic.
The Old Republic. Yeah. But anyway, you look at that. There's your here's what it is. Like, here's the show.
It's that time. It's before the Sith with the rule of two.
Anyway.
All right, what's next?
Rafael Castillo says, test. All of my last 5 or 6 super chats have been charged, not made through, and all but one refunded.
Again, that's something you got to take up with YouTube. We read everyone that comes through, but you're going to have to double check that with YouTube. That's not something that we can control on our end, unfortunately.
By the way, that one made it.
Yeah, and by the way, test worked. All right, what's next?
Kyle Schneider says, I saw Puss in Boots, The Last Witch, and I loved it. Funny, great characters, and subtle themes of morality. Highly recommended.
Or is that morality? Is that I didn't see it. So mortality. No, that's morality. Yeah. Because I heard mortality is also kind of one of the heart of
absolutely.
the things. Hear nothing but great things. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on it as well. You guys are just making me more excited to see this, so I'm super stoked for it. All right, what's next?
Gabriel says, I've got to say, even though the manifest plot or pilot is a lot of gobbledygook, actors, in my opinion, are compelling and even some good emotional scenes. Can't wait for season 4.5. Well, Gabriel, you just nailed it on the head. That whole show is gobbledygook. It's ridiculous. But those actors, the reason I watch this show is because those actors believe, man. I have never seen a cast believe in gobbledygook more than the cast of Manifest does. By God, they all deserve a SAG award. Give those people what they deserve.
By the way, I tried. The initial conceit of that show looked really interesting. Plane takes off, and when they land, what is it, 15?
5 years
5
later.
years have passed. That's fascinating to me.
Yep.
I muscled through to episode 4. And by the time, I think it was the episode where they all mysteriously feel compelled to go to that airport or whatever. I'm like,
Oh, the plane blows
yeah,
up.
yeah. And I'm
Like
like,
a law strip. Huh?
that's like, no,
Oh,
I tap. I
It
tap.
is. It is.
Horrible.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's. I'm telling you,
All right, what's next?
that cast. Oh boy, Mac Woody. We talk a lot about DC. What do you think the future looks like for Warner Brothers? Does Warner Brothers Studio have good movies and franchises? Thanks, John.
Listen, they are like, even before the new ownership took over, Rob, you talk about this a lot. Warner Brothers is maybe the most celebrated, like with the history of that studio and all that kind of stuff. They are still awards darlings and all that kind of stuff. I personally think now under the new ownership, and this is up for debate, but to me, I think other than his inability to keep Legendary to stay, and maybe that was a lost cause, I don't know, but I am personally in the camp that everything that the new ownership has done at Warner Brothers has been picture perfect and exactly what you need to do to set the groundwork for future success. I think there's a bright future for Warner Brothers, DC, all this kind of stuff. I love the moves that they've been making. So yeah, they are still a prominent powerhouse. They will continue to be a prominent powerhouse. And I think good things lay ahead. You're a little more skeptical on that than I am.
I mean, I think he's Zaslav, and I've been calling him that lately because I think he's been doing a couple things right lately. I don't agree that he's done everything right. I think that I
only say that because he's done everything I would have done.
Yeah, but
so
I mean,
I think it's the right
even
thing.
with like the Batgirl thing, right? Like, I think that if the movie stinks and they feel that they could have made some money off of it by doing the tax break, then that's the move to make. I just think his handling and the way that he went about it in the bedside manner that he came with across with the layoffs and stuff in his first couple of weeks, I think, and then from what I heard, people have been talking to him, and it seems like things have been better in his bedside manner over the last month or so, because initially he came out and it was brutal, and how he was not necessarily the moves he was making, but in the manner that he was doing it on phone calls and other things and in press releases. But I think that he's got a task in front of him of getting them out of debt, doing the things that he has to do, making some moves, and I think that he's been doing some good stuff and having to get some meetings in there to make new franchises. He's talked about Harry Potter and bringing Harry Potter back. I don't know how he's going to do that, but these other things, I think he's got to find ways to make some new franchises.
I think the smartest thing he has done is when you look at the executive level stuff at Warner Brothers, he's been surrounding himself with very, very smart people.
Well, he's doing that thing that we all talk about. And I don't want this to be a pile up on Lucasfilm, but like the thing that we always talk about with Lucasfilm is that instead of having one person try to do everything, surround yourself with a team and go, like you said it yesterday on the show. It's like when Dwayne Johnson was trying to get Superman in, and they're like, no, we can't do that. You can't do that. And Dwayne's making his case for it, like, no, we're staying steady. And Zav goes, well, no, you know what? You think it can work? I like having him. He's a big power source. Go get him. And he trusts in his creators. It's the person that can make the power moves and trust in the people around them. Those are the most successful people. It's the ones that try to do everything themselves and try to like hold everybody at bay and make the creative decisions and do the producing role. That's when it starts to be a problem.
Good point. All right, what's next?
The Swifties. Oh no. How do bears catch fish?
Catching
They
them.
use their bare hands.
Knew you'd like that one.
My presence is being felt here.
Wow.
All right.
Tucker Flynn says the only new holiday movie that comes to mind for me is The Night Before, but I'd hardly call it great, but pretty good.
Which one was
It's
The
no
Night
Die Hard
Before?
though.
Oh, it's-
Anthony
I was
Mackie,
just-
Seth
Yep,
Rogen.
yep, and Seth Rogen. Yeah, you know what?
Underrated.
That's not a bad one.
It's underrated.
It's not one that I ever felt like I'm going to come back to this movie every Christmas
Yeah.
like I do.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
You're right.
Yeah.
That wasn't a bad
Yeah.
little one at all.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good one to point out. All right, what's next?
Support here from Nova Star.
Oh, thank you, Nova Star, for just sending in a super chat to be supportive.
Hoop Suni.
I know.
Oh, hang on.
Devin?
Devin Pangrekar says, is continuity becoming a bigger issue in the MCU?
Yes. But it is, like Thanos himself, inevitable. The bigger and bigger and bigger this thing gets, the more and more difficult it's going to be, because whenever you make a movie in shared cinematic universe, the biggest struggle is always this: your creators have their hands a little bit more tied than when they're making a purely original movie. Because in a purely original movie, you can walk in, you can do whatever you'd like to do. In the MCU, you're stepping in, it's like there's some very firm boundaries you got to stay within. And at times, it's going to break. There was a good article on Screen Rant, actually, I think it was, that put out, say, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special broke canon 5 times. It's like, and you know what? They kind of did in a way, but that's fine. It is inevitable, though. The deeper and the further and further you go, the more and more it's going to start with little fractures, and then it's going to be pure breaks in canon. Like, what's the best way to deal with that?
Oh man, I mean, I think that it's like the out that they always have is the matter of the different multiverses and
Yes.
the different things. That's
always
out
the lazy
because-
man fallback,
Because a lot of people are saying that there's a theory going around that Phase 4 all takes place in a different.
But Rob subscribes to this.
You say that as
yeah.
well, right? So,
Well, what we've been seeing over different films, different universes.
right. So in Phase 4, and like, cause I saw you guys talking about yesterday with the Bucky's arm thing, right? Like James Gunn confirmed that Nebula went down and stole it. That's
Right.
what he said in his on Twitter. He said he went down and he stole it. And he said, "Really? That's how it happened." He's like, "Yeah, that's how it happened."
Well, we saw in Falcon and Winter Soldier how easy it is to get. I mean, the Dora Milaje, bing.
Right. So, well, that's my point. It's like, so what's really canon? What's up? Because James Gunn carries out anyway. Now. So what is he got? He's after
you know,
Guardians.
if they start the Thunderbolts with like, "Why are you late? Can't find my arm."
Right.
If they start that, then that would probably be a funny little gag. But it gets more and more tricky.
it's
The
tricky.
more mythology you create, the harder it is to keep it all in line.
And I mean, just to put it in perspective, in 60 years there was 25 James Bond movies. Not that canon was a big deal. In 14 years there have been 30 MCU movies. So the content that they've created, no one's ever done this before.
And the TV shows.
And the shows,
that
yeah.
doesn't include shows.
All right, what's next?
Last one.
Hoopsuni says, I am praying that Glass Onion gets some sort of physical media release like The Irishman and Uncut Gems, both Netflix originals. Both of those came out by Criterion as well. So maybe it will.
Yeah, Netflix is a little more open to doing that sort of thing, so I wouldn't doubt it if they did it all. A couple of the other streamers are wisely kind of avoiding that, but yeah, I mean, Netflix seems to do that. So if you're looking for that on your shopping list in a few months, I think you're going to be in luck. All right, guys. And that'll do it for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those super chats. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Hey, don't forget to come back to the channel a little bit later today at 3 p.m. Los Angeles time. That'll be 6 p.m. New York time, as Rob and I do an open mic where we just carry on the conversation with you guys. Hope that you'll come back and join us then. And of course, make sure you come on back and join us for the John Campea Show tomorrow. And guys, while you're here, why don't you take a second, help the channel out, click on the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below. All these things help push our videos out to an even wider audience. So thank you all for your support. All right. For everybody in the room, I want to thank Robert Meyer Burnett. Thank you so much. Christian, love it when you guys drop in here on Tuesdays. Where can people find you and follow your stuff?
John, I'm just seconds away, probably like 800 people away from 60,000 finally on my YouTube channel. I've had it it's a Christian Harloff channel. It's
Never
been
gonna
up for
get there.
Never going to get there.
No.
Been there about a year. So if you guys have a chance to go over there, please, I always drop a comment on the show that I'm on. So thank you to John and everybody for having me on. And the last thing I'll leave you with is how do you make an egg roll? Just roll it.
Also, sitting back
Ray.
there, loving the jokes,
what I put
is
up with?
Ray Ora. And Jonathan Voico's been running the show. Thank you for getting all the facts for us. All the facts for us. Taylor Gonzalez been getting those for us. I am, of course, John Campea. Thanks a lot for being here, guys. And until next time, my friends, bye-bye.